Chapter 4777. Lu Ming had never used the last drop of the 5 elements deity tier, but now it could be put to good use. Even though the 5 elements deity tier was extremely precious, it was worth it to save a powerful forbidden body. It could greatly increase the power of Heaven Destroyer. A forbidden body of a peak-level divine master was at least as powerful as the Lord of Heaven. Everyone, I have a treasure in my hands. Lu Ming immediately told her that he had a drop of 5 elements immortal tier. Lion, Rongjin, and Tang Jian were thrilled. Haha, great. If we can save Gu Changfeng and stop Yi Immortal, we might not lose this battle. The lion laughed loudly, going wild with joy. Let's not waste any time. We have a month at most. Let's act now, Rongjin said. That's right. We need to start selecting people too, Zixian said. Everyone immediately split up and got ready. Lu Ming, Xian Yanqing, Tang Jun and the others followed Lion and headed in a direction. They were going to where Gu Changfeng was sleeping. The place where Gu Changfeng was sleeping was in a deep cave deep under the base of the Heaven Exterminating Troop. There was an altar in the cave and there was an ice coffin on the altar. There were arrays around the ice coffin. Gu Changfeng was sleeping in the ice coffin. He's so handsome, and he's also a human. Lu Ming was intrigued. Apparently, Gu Changfeng was also a human. He was wearing a white robe, and his eyes were closed. He was extremely handsome. Among all the men Lu Ming had seen, Gu Changfeng was at least in the top 3. However, his life force was extremely weak, and it was only because the arrays and the ice coffin were stable. Of course, Gu Changfeng's own will was extremely strong, otherwise he would have died. Let's wait for a while. I've already sent out a message. Someone will send the other treasures here soon, Lion said. Everyone waited patiently. About an hour later, the primordial gods brought over 9 types of treasures. These 9 treasures were all treasures that contained exuberant life essence, and could bring the dead back to life. Let's begin. Lu Ming will first use the life essence of these 9 treasures to stabilize his life, then you can use the 5 elements immortal tier to save him, Lion said. Alright. Lu Ming nodded. Lion and the others immediately took action. They first refined the 9 treasures into pure life energy, and then injected it into Gu Changfeng's body. Instantly, Gu Changfeng's body was covered by a layer of white light, and one could clearly feel that his vitality was increasing rapidly. Blood and qi flowed through his body, becoming more vigorous. But that was all. Although his life force was exuberant, it had yet to reach its peak. As for his soul, it was still in a shattered state and had not recovered. Lu Ming, it's your turn, Lion shouted softly. Lu Ming was already prepared. With a wave of his hand, the last drop of 5 elements immortal tier flew toward Gu Changfeng and seeped into his glabella. After the 5 elements immortal tier entered Gu Changfeng's body, his body was immediately covered by a layer of colorful energy. Gu Changfeng's vitality became more vigorous. His soul was also quickly recovering. It's definitely useful. Lion was thrilled. With the 5 elements immortal tier, it would definitely be able to save Gu Changfeng. Lu Ming also smiled. He could sense that Gu Changfeng indeed had a pure forbidden body. There was no mistake about it. He somehow felt close to him. This was his kind. There were too few forbidden bodies in the entire universe. He knew that only Tang Feng, Fei Huang and the Master of the Heavenly Courts were still alive. Now there was also Gu Changfeng. There were only a few of them left. As for the 2 controlled by the heavenly human race, they were no longer counted. They had completely become puppets. Time flew by and a few days passed in the blink of an eye. A few days later, Gu Changfeng opened his eyes all of a sudden. His eyes were as bright as the stars in the sky. Also, a powerful force spread out from his body. A forbidden body. There was no doubt about it. The forbidden body in Lu Ming's body seemed to have sensed something, and started to flow quickly. Gu Changfeng also seemed to have sensed Lu Ming's forbidden power. He immediately looked at Lu Ming. A forbidden body. I didn't expect another forbidden body to appear. Gu Changfeng mumbled with a strange look in his eyes. Speaking of which, this was the first time he had seen another forbidden body. Gu Changfeng, you're finally awake. Lion laughed loudly. Gu Changfeng finally looked away from Lu Ming and landed on Lion. He smiled and said, "Lion, it's you. How long have I been unconscious?" Gu Changfeng had known Lion back then. Gu Changfeng had known Lion since he was young. After he was severely injured, he didn't fall into a deep sleep immediately. After he was brought back by the origin of the primitive god, he met Lion again. "It's been almost 80 stellar years." Lion said. 80 stellar years. I didn't expect to sleep for so long. No wonder a new forbidden body appeared. Did you guys save me this time? Gu Changfeng said. It's mainly Lu Ming. He saved you with the 5 elements fairy tear. Lion pointed at Lu Ming and said, "Thank you for saving my life. I, Gu Changfeng, will remember this. I will repay you one day." Gu Changfeng cupped his fists at Lu Ming. "Senior Gu, you're welcome. You and I both have forbidden bodies and I have no reason not to save you. Besides, I still need your help now." Lu Ming said. "Oh, what's going on now?" Gu Changfeng asked. Well, Lion immediately told him about the current situation in the universe. "I can't believe that the universe has changed so much in just 80 stellar years. You don't have to tell me that. I will fight even if it means risking my life. I still have a lot to settle with the heavenly human race." Haha. Gu Changfeng sneered and his eyes were full of viciousness. "Gu Changfeng, I heard that the heavenly human race set you up back then. Is that true?" Lion asked curiously. "No, the heavenly human race did want to set me up, but I've been prepared and I've been avoiding them. There was a big problem with my cultivation back then. I was too greedy and I was hurt when I reached the origin level." Gu Changfeng heaved a sigh. After a moment of silence, Gu Changfeng continued, "I'm almost recovered now, but my power hasn't reached the peak yet. I need some time. 20 days should be enough." "Okay, then we won't disturb you," Lion said. Lu Ming and the others also cupped their fists and left. Everyone in the Heaven Exterminating Troop was preparing for the great battle that would take place in 20 days. Lu Ming went back to his place and started to study the battle art. The 3000th ancient secret art was apparently not something he could learn in a short time, so he might as well study the battle art. Chapter 4778. In the past few years, Lu Ming had been focused on learning all kinds of secret arts, and hadn't spent time on the battle formula. Lu Ming's chances of triggering the 9-fold combat ability of the Battle Character Sutra were still around 1 in 10. If he could increase the chances of triggering it, it would be good. Everyone was preparing. The tribulation lightning above the Heaven Destroyer's base was still striking, and the array was trembling, and the light was getting dimmer and dimmer. Soon, more than 20 days had passed. The array of the Heaven Destroyer's base was in danger, as if it would collapse at any time. All the masters of the Heaven Destroyer and the demons were ready. Lu Ming, Xian Yanqing, Guemo, Shimu Rongjin and the rest, as well as the powerful demons, stood in the sky and looked at the powerful demons from the heavenly human tribe. The atmosphere was getting more and more tense. Both sides were ready for a big battle. Rumble. As the tribulation lightning continued to strike, the array of the Heaven Destroyer's base was getting dimmer and dimmer. Suddenly, there were bursts of explosions. The array was torn apart, and many of the array bases were shattered. Huge cracks appeared on the array. "Get ready to fight!" Lion roared, and his body rapidly expanded into a lion-like giant beast. His roar was like thunder, and his aura was violent. "Kill the heavenly human race." The demons also roared, and their killing intent soared into the sky. Humph, they're overestimating themselves. Once the array is broken, it won't be long before we defeat them, and let them know what despair is. That's right, we have 20 overlords at the Lord of Heaven's level. They can't make up for it with numbers. Outside, some heavenly human race members sneered. Most of the heavenly human race members looked relaxed. The heavenly human race had 20 Lord of Heaven's combat power, and they were too powerful. They had defeated the demon army as easily as crushing dry weeds. In the era where the origin power didn't appear, the 20 Lord of Heaven were really invincible. In their view, the Heaven Destroyer and the demons were just putting up a desperate fight. Once they fought, they would be defeated in a few moves. Crash! The array formation continued to collapse. After a while, the array formation of the Heaven Destroyer base completely disappeared. At the same time, The 36 balls of tribulation divine thunder merged together and formed the shape of a battle sword. However, compared to before, this battle sword was severely lacking in spirituality and was already half destroyed. Kill. Ye Immortal's voice reverberated through the sky as he took the lead and charged toward the Heaven Destroyer's base. He held a divine sword in his hand and wore a divine armor. Both of them were top-notch origin-grade divine weapons, which made him look even more extraordinary. Behind them, Yi Qiuxian, the Lord of Heaven of 100 battles, and the others who possessed the strongest battle prowess of the Lord of Heaven, followed the Yi Immortal as they charged towards the Heaven Destroyer base. The other 3,000 heavenly human divine masters didn't attack together. Obviously, 20 of the strongest Lord of Heaven's combat power was enough to defeat the Heaven Destroyer and the demons. At that time, the Heaven Exterminating Troop and the demons would panic and flee in all directions like loose sand. The 3,000 heavenly human divine masters were in charge of hunting them down. They had dealt with the demons in the same way before. At that time, the demons were completely panicked and fled in fear. They couldn't form any battle prowess at all. So the 3,000 heavenly human divine masters killed a large number of powerful cultivators. Kill. Lion suddenly roared and charged into the sky. At the same time, Lu Ming, Xianyanqing, Guemo, and some other powerful cultivators from the demons also charged into the sky and charged toward Yi Immortal and the others. The Heaven Destroyer and the demons didn't all attack. They only sent out a few hundred powerful cultivators. However, these hundreds of powerful cultivators were all top-notch cultivators. The other divine masters were waiting for an opportunity to attack. The moment Lu Ming and the others rushed out, a beam of light shot out from somewhere in the Heaven Destroyer's base. A figure rushed out at an astonishing speed and caught up with Lu Ming and the others. He then charged toward the heavenly human overlords. It was Gu Changfeng. Gu Changfeng, it's you. Why are you still alive? Someone from the heavenly human race recognized Gu Changfeng and yelled. What? He's Gu Changfeng, the one with the forbidden body 80 years ago? Didn't they say he died a long time ago? Why is he still alive? The other heavenly human race members who had heard of Gu Changfeng also exclaimed, Gu Changfeng? Since you're still alive, let me send you on your way. Yi Immortal said coldly as he unleashed his energy. The divine sword in his hand was full of sword qi, and he slashed toward Gu Changfeng even though he was still a distance away. You're Yi Immortal? The most powerful ancestral patriarch of the heavenly human race? I want to meet you. Gu Changfeng yelled as a long spear appeared in his hand. Without a doubt, it was also an origin divine weapon of a very high level. People like Gu Changfeng, like Lu Ming, were all people who had great opportunities. They were the protagonists of an era. How could they lack a divine weapon? The long spear turned into a bright ray of light and clashed with Yi Immortal's sword aura. With a boom, the two attacks disappeared at the same time. He had blocked it. Lion and the others were thrilled. Yi Immortal narrowed his eyes and said coldly, let's see how many attacks you can block. Kill. Gu Changfeng and Yi Immortal took the lead and clashed with each other. After the two of them clashed, they started to fight fiercely. Clang, clang, clang. They were so fast that they had exchanged dozens of blows in an instant. It was a draw. This time, Lu Ming, Lion and the others were finally relieved. Gu Changfeng's combat strength was indeed terrifying. He had completely blocked Yi Immortal, and was not weaker than him. It was a draw. Ha ha ha, the forbidden body is indeed powerful. Kill. Lion roared with laughter. The morale of the others was also greatly boosted. It seems that the forbidden body with a clear mind is far more powerful than the Lord of Heaven. However, this is normal. Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. It was normal for the forbidden body to be far more powerful than the Lord of Heaven, when they were at the same level. After all, the Lord of Heaven's combat strength was only in control of 3 ultimate heavenly powers. The reason why the 2 forbidden bodies controlled by the heavenly human race could only unleash the combat strength of the strongest Lord of Heaven was that they had completely lost their intelligence. It was only equivalent to a puppet, and it couldn't display its full strength at all. If there were 2 forbidden bodies with a clear mind, it would be terrifying. At this moment, the others were also clashing with each other. Roar. Lion roared and charged towards extermination heavenly monarch. The two of them were locked in a fierce battle, and it was difficult to tell who would emerge victorious. The other strongest divine master of the heaven exterminating troop was up against the heavenly lord of 100 battles. Leave these two forbidden bodies to me. I want to fight two forbidden bodies at the same time. Ha ha. Bone Devil laughed as he unleashed a terrifying attack that enveloped the two forbidden puppets. After exchanging a few blows, Bone Devil's body shook violently as he retreated. However, he ignored his defenses and charged at the two forbidden puppets. The two forbidden puppets' attacks landed on Bone Devil's body, but they could only produce clanging sounds and sparks. However, they were unable to break Bone Devil's bones. They couldn't even leave a mark on him. Bone Devil had merged with the skeleton under the immeasurable devil steel. His body was too tough. Chapter 47-79. The skeleton that Bone Demon had fused with in the boundless demon abyss had an extraordinary origin. It belonged to an expert from the previous epoch. No one knew what level he had been at when he was alive. Even though he had died countless years ago, the skeleton he left behind was still extremely terrifying. If it were not for the origin tribulation, Bone Demon could have used that skeleton to recover his cultivation to the origin realm. Even if he could not break through the origin realm, the toughness of his skeleton remained. It was not something a divine lord could break through. There was not even a trace of damage. Bone Demon's only weakness now seemed to be his soul. However, the two forbidden bodies had no consciousness. They were puppet-like existences. They could not attack the soul at all. This was also why Bone Demon had chosen these two to fight. The Bone Demon held the two forbidden puppets in a tight grip. Explode! Not far from Lu Ming, for evil demon experts roared. Their eyes were blood-red, as if they were ready to die. Their bodies were filled with a dense bloody aura. A divine weapon hovered above their heads. These divine weapons were undoubtedly of very high grade. They were the greatest treasures of the four royal demon races. At this moment, the four evil demon experts had used a special secret technique to burn themselves and reach some sort of resonance with the treasures. Buzz. The four terrifying treasures vibrated and activated a sliver of power. It surged into the bodies of the four evil demons, causing their battle prowess to skyrocket. Their bodies rapidly swelled, turning into four huge evil demons. They spread their wings, blotting out the sun. Demonic chi filled the sky. They clashed with the four primordial divine spirit puppets. For a moment, divine light and demonic chi filled the area, destroying the void. The four evil demons had used their secret techniques and treasures to skyrocket their battle prowess. They had indeed reached the level of the Lord of Heaven. However, the price was their lives. Generally speaking, divine lords, even peak divine lords, could not activate much of the power of source-level divine weapons. Not to mention divine weapons like the treasures of the four royal demon races. They could not activate any of their power. However, these four overlords had used their own bloodlines and secret arts to ignite their own lives to resonate with the suppressing treasure of their race. In the end, they had activated a trace of the power of the suppressing treasure of their race, increasing their battle power to that of the strongest heavenly lords. The four fiends had entangled the puppets of the four primitive gods. On the other hand, Xian Yanqing was up against one of the strongest lords of heaven, the Pantheon Lord of Heaven. A mere ninth-layer divine master. You're courting death. Kill. The Pan-Heaven Lord of Heaven completely looked down on Xian Yanqing. Not everyone was like Yi Qiuxian, able to possess the fighting prowess of the strongest Lord of Heaven as a ninth-level divine master. His three types of supreme heavenly powers intertwined as he struck out with a palm, clashing with Xian Yanqing's attack. With a loud bang, Xian Yanqing's body shook violently, and he was sent flying backwards. Die! Pantheon Lord of Heaven coldly shouted, and took out his origin-grade divine weapon, wanting to kill Xian Yanqing in one move. Immeasurable Devil Steel! Xian Yanqing barked, and the immeasurable Devil Steel's shadow appeared above him. When the immeasurable Devil Steel's shadow appeared, the aura around Xian Yanqing's body increased exponentially. The devil chi around him was so dense that it was almost tangible. Xian Yanqing struck out with his palm, and a wisp of devil chi rushed out. This wisp of devil chi turned into a boundless devil soul, and it collided with the Pantheon Lord of Heaven. This time, there was no loud explosion, because after the immeasurable demonic soul was hit, it immediately dissipated. However, after the boundless devil soul dissipated, the terrifying energy didn't dissipate. Instead, it continued to rush towards the Pantheon Lord of Heaven. Almost unstoppable, the energy rushed into the Pantheon Lord of Heaven's body. The Pantheon Lord of Heaven's expression changed drastically. He felt his mental state becoming unstable, and anger rose in his heart. His killing intent intensified, and his heart's devil seemed to be on the verge of erupting. "You can trigger my heart's devil, damn it, die for me," the Pantheon Lord of Heaven roared, and no longer held back. He pushed his battle prowess to the limit, and his source-grade divine weapon whistled through the air as he attacked Xian Yanqing. The immeasurable devil steel's shadow above Xian Yanqing's head rushed out, and it collided with the Pantheon Lord of Heaven's attack, blocking the Pantheon Lord of Heaven's attack. In the next moment, Xian Yanqing's palm struck out again. This time he struck out 3 times in a row. 3 wisps of devil chi rushed out, turning into 3 boundless devil souls that rushed towards the Pantheon Lord of Heaven. The Pantheon Lord of Heaven's expression changed again. He didn't dare to clash head-on with the 3 boundless devil souls, and he could only choose to dodge. He dodged continuously, avoiding the boundless devil souls as he rushed towards Xian Yanqing. When he got close enough to Xian Yanqing, he would launch a sure-kill attack. He realized that Xian Yanqing's attack power wasn't as strong as his own. It was the immeasurable devil steel's shadow, and the boundless devil souls that were more powerful. Especially the boundless devil souls that could trigger his heart's devil. If this happened a few more times, his heart's devil would erupt, and the consequences would be dire. However, Xian Yanqing struck out a few more times, and more wisps of devil chi turned into boundless devil souls that rushed towards the Pantheon Lord of Heaven. "Damn it!" the Pantheon Lord of Heaven roared, and his killing intent soared to the sky. Unfortunately, he couldn't do anything to Xian Yanqing, and the two of them entered a stalemate. Seeing that Xian Yanqing was fine, Lu Ming finally relaxed. "Lu Ming, I'll definitely kill you this time." Yi Qiuxian had his eyes on Lu Ming since a long time ago, and he had ordered the others not to touch Lu Ming, leaving Lu Ming to him. At this time he was already charging towards Lu Ming. Yi Qiuxian held an origin-grade divine sword in his hand, and wore an origin-grade divine armor. He looked majestic as he slashed out with his battle sword. Sword light swept out, wanting to split Lu Ming into 2 halves. Buzz! The war god spear in Lu Ming's hand vibrated, emitting a terrifying buzzing sound that shattered the void. In the next second, the war god spear turned into a streak of light, piercing towards Yi Qiuxian. Before this, Lu Ming had already activated the battle formula. Thus, at this moment, he had already activated the battle formula, increasing his battle power by 9 times. Clang! The spear and sword collided, and a violent shockwave swept out in all directions. Lu Ming and Yi Qiuxian's bodies shook, and both of them staggered backwards. Your strength, it's impossible." Yi Qiuxian's eyes widened, and he roared in disbelief. His handsome face was distorted. He found it hard to believe, and he found it hard to accept, such an outcome. He was now a 9th-tier divine master, and his battle power had skyrocketed. He had thought that he could easily suppress Lu Ming. Even when he saw that Lu Ming's cultivation base was now an 8th-tier divine master, he still thought so. In the past, when they fought at the same level, although Lu Ming was stronger than him, it was not by much. Now that his cultivation base was a tier higher, it should not be difficult for him to suppress Lu Ming. However, after exchanging a blow with Lu Ming earlier, they were evenly matched. He had used almost all his strength in that blow. In other words, not only had Lu Ming's cultivation base increased, but his battle power had also increased greatly when fighting at the same level. Now, if he fought Lu Ming at the same level, he would be suppressed in a matter of minutes. He could not accept this, and he was so jealous that he was about to go crazy. Every time his battle power skyrocketed, and he was full of confidence that he could suppress Lu Ming, he would suffer a huge blow in the end. He was about to break down, and his mentality was unstable. "Kill him. I must kill him today." Yi Qiuxian's eyes were bloodshot as he charged toward Lu Ming in a frenzy. Chapter 4780. Yi Qiuxian relied on his origin divine weapon armor, and completely ignored his own defense as he charged toward Lu Ming. Boom. 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 The two of them exchanged a few blows, but there was no clear victor. At this moment, the other two normal strongest demon masters of the evil demon race, as well as other experts from both sides such as Tang Jian, Divine Lord Meng Su, Rong Jin, and the others, as well as Qiu, were facing off against the 9 strongest heavenly monarchs of the celestial race who were wearing golden battle armor. The 2 strongest demon lords were each dealing with one of them. Qiu also displayed unparalleled combat power, and was locked in a fierce battle with one of the strongest Lord of Heaven. There was also another expert, the Tiger, of the lion race. Although he was injured, he could display the combat power of the strongest Lord of Heaven for a short period of time, and fight with an old Lord of Heaven. The other hundreds of experts were fighting with the remaining 5 strongest Lord of Heaven. Among these hundreds of experts, there was no lack of top-level Lord of Heaven. With these people as the main force, they temporarily blocked the 5 strongest Lord of Heaven. They blocked it. On the Heaven Destroyer's base, countless creatures were overjoyed. The other party came in a menacing manner. They sent out 20 of the strongest Heaven Monarch realm experts at once. Their terrifying combat strength made people despair. But the Heaven Destroyer and the demons worked together and blocked it in the end. On the Heavenly Human Race's battleship, the Heavenly Human Race members were dumbfounded. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, they would have found it hard to believe. In this era where the origin source didn't appear, the combat power of 20 strongest Lord of Heaven level experts was almost unrivaled and undefeatable. But now they were forcefully blocked. It was like a fantasy story. Should we make a move and lend you a hand? A Lord of Heaven asked. We can't. The enemy still has more than 10,000 divine masters who haven't made a move yet, and they're all eyeing us covetously. Once we make a move, they'll make a move as well. We only have 3,000 people, and we're far outnumbered by them. Another Lord of Heaven spoke. He was a top-tier Lord of Heaven. Damn it. I didn't expect there to be so many powerhouses among the Heaven Destroyer and the demons. That's right. Lu Ming, Xian Yanqing, and even Lu Ming's metallic life form all have the power of the Lord of Heaven. This is cheating. And Gu Changfeng, he's not dead yet. His combat strength is at its peak, and he can fight against the ancestor. Many heavenly humans roared. The Heaven Destroyer or the demon also had some trump cards, which was within their expectations. But they had thought that even if the Heaven Destroyer and the demon had some trump cards, they wouldn't be able to fight against 20 Lord of Heaven. This was because the Heavenly Palace had the advantage of being in a position that had been accumulated over time. It was impossible for the Heaven Destroyer and the demon to have any. But they had never thought that Lu Ming, Xian Yanqing, and Qiu would also have the power of the Lord of Heaven. They also hadn't thought that Gu Changfeng was still alive, and had retained his peak combat strength. This had completely disrupted their plan. Without Gu Changfeng, the Yi Immortal would have been able to kill the other Lord of Heaven overlords and break the balance completely and eventually defeat the Heaven Destroyer and the demon. But now, the Yi Immortal had been blocked, and the heavenly humans had lost their biggest advantage. The battle between the two sides had reached a stalemate, and it depended on which side could break the stalemate. Soon, the two sides had exchanged more than 100 moves, but there was still no clear winner. The other people's combat strength was about the same, and it was impossible to determine the winner in a short period of time. Kill. 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 At that moment, Yi Qiuxian's eyes were bloodshot as he launched a frenzied attack on Lu Ming. During this period, he was hit by 2 of Lu Ming's attacks. However, he relied on the defensive power of the source-level divine weapon battle armor to withstand the attacks. The armor on Yi Qiuxian's body was extraordinary, and it wasn't an ordinary armor. Even the War God Spear couldn't break it, and could only leave a faint mark on it. Lu Ming, you can't do anything to me. If this continues, you will die in my hands. Yi Qiuxian roared. He didn't care about defense and attacked crazily. He was indeed powerful and gradually gained the upper hand. Do you think you are the only one with a divine weapon armor? Lu Ming said coldly. Then, he sent a voice transmission to Tang Jian, Rong Jin, and the others, asking if they could temporarily hold back the 6 opponents. This was because Lu Ming wanted to pull Qiu out. Don't worry, we don't want to win, but we don't want to make any mistakes. We will focus on defense and hold back the 6 of them. Tang Jian sent a voice transmission to Lu Ming. Okay. Lu Ming nodded, and sent a voice transmission to Qiu. Boom. Qiu exchanged a blow with the old Lord of Heaven. Then, its body wriggled and turned into a ray of sword light that pierced through the void. After a few flashes, it appeared beside Lu Ming and attached to Lu Ming's body, turning into an armor. Lu Ming gave up on defense, and allowed Yi Qiuxian's sword light to slash his body. At the same time, he swept out his spear and hit Yi Qiuxian's head heavily. Yi Qiuxian was covered in armor, including his head. However, the violent power could still penetrate the armor and form an impact. Lu Ming and Yi Qiuxian retreated at the same time. However, Yi Qiuxian's situation was more serious. He was hit in the head and felt dizzy for a moment. At this moment, a beam of light shot out from Lu Ming's chest. It was Qiu's ultimate move. A beam of light that could cause people to fall into an illusion. Qiu's cultivation had increased greatly. Even if it maintained its armor form, it could still shoot out a beam of light. The beam of light enveloped Yi Qiuxian. This beam of light was not something armor could withstand. Moreover, Qiu's cultivation had reached the peak of the almighty level. The power of the beam of light had increased tremendously. Yi Qiuxian was confused for a moment, and fell into an illusion. Lu Ming naturally would not miss such an opportunity. His figure flashed and rushed to Yi Qiuxian's side. The war god's spear blasted out wildly. Boom, boom, boom. In an instant, Lu Ming blasted out at least a dozen moves, all of which landed on Yi Qiuxian's body. Yi Qiuxian was like a rubber ball. He was blasted around in the vast void. Even if the defense of his origin-level armor was amazing and Lu Ming could not break through it, the powerful impact still passed through the armor and hit Yi Qiuxian's body. Dozens of impacts hit Yi Qiuxian's body consecutively. Even Yi Qiuxian could not withstand it. He spat out blood and was seriously injured. Kill! Lu Ming shouted and continued to attack Yi Qiuxian. Even if he could not break through Yi Qiuxian's armor, Lu Ming wanted to shock Yi Qiuxian to death. Why are you still fighting with those people? Come over together and kill Lu Ming first. Yi Immortal shouted and his cold voice sounded. He was talking to the 6 strongest Lord of Heaven who were fighting with Tang Jian, Rongjin, and the others. Let's go and kill Lu Ming. The 6 strongest Lord of Heaven swept out their golden spears and destroyed the attacks of Rongjin and the others. Then they rushed toward Lu Ming. Rongjin and the others could fight with the other party if they joined forces. However, if the other party wanted to leave, they could not stop them all. Chapter 4781. Rongjin, Tang Jian, and the others tried their best to stop them, but it was very difficult for them to stop all 6 of the strongest Lord of Heaven. In the end, they were only able to stop 2 of them, while the other 4 broke through the blockade and charged at Lu Ming. The strongest Lord of Heaven fighters were too fast. They tore through the void, traversing millions of li in an instant, and arriving before Lu Ming in an instant. The 4 of them shouted as they thrust out their golden spears, which rapidly enlarged and pierced through the void toward Lu Ming. The 4 strongest Lord of Heaven joined forces. Even though Lu Ming was protected by Qiu's armor, he did not dare to be careless. He did not continue to chase after Yi Qiuxian, and used his movement technique to rapidly dodge, wanting to avoid the attacks of the 4 Lord of Heaven. However, the 4 strongest Lord of Heaven joining forces were not so easy to dodge. Lu Ming did his best, but in the end, he was only able to dodge 2 of the attacks. The other 2 attacks struck Lu Ming. Zzz, the golden spears pierced Qiu's armor, producing ear-piercing sounds and sending sparks everywhere. Lu Ming's body shook violently as he rapidly retreated. Although the other party did not manage to pierce through Qiu's armor, part of the powerful force still managed to break through the armor and hit Lu Ming's body. Lu Ming's cultivation was only at the 8th tier of the Divine Lord realm, so his defensive power was limited. Even though the force of the impact penetrated the armor, it still caused Lu Ming's blood to churn, causing him to spit out a mouthful of blood. Kill him. His cultivation is only at the 8th tier of the Divine Lord realm, so his defensive power is limited. Even if our power penetrates the armor, it's enough to kill him. Yi Qiuxian roared, ignoring his injuries. At the same time, he charged at Lu Ming. His eyes were blood-red and his killing intent was at its peak. His hatred for Lu Ming was monstrous. How many times had it been? Every time his battle prowess increased greatly, he thought that he could suppress Lu Ming, but the result was that he was suppressed. It was really too sullen, and his anger was about to ignite his entire being. If he did not kill Lu Ming, he felt like he would develop inner demons, making it difficult for him to break through to reciprocity. He pushed his perfect heaven's power to the extreme, slashing out a sword light at Lu Ming. At the same time, the second wave of attacks from the four old Lord of Heaven had already erupted. Four golden spears pierced towards Lu Ming from four different directions. It was unavoidable. Even Qiuqiu's illusory light pillar couldn't exert its full power against 5 of the strongest Lord of Heaven's combat strength. Because the area covered by the illusory light beam was limited, the other party was clearly on guard against Lu Ming's move, so they didn't gather together but spread out. The illusory light pillars could only envelop one person at a time. However, even with that being the case, Lu Ming could only fight with his life on the line. Qiuqiu continued to shoot out a beam of light, enveloping an old Lord of Heaven. He was immediately greatly affected, stiffening up and stopping his attacks. Lu Ming erupted with his full strength, shining with resplendent light. He used the desolate form in his left hand and the heaven splitter form in his right, striking out several times consecutively. A continent appeared, along with 3 streaks of light that shot towards the 3 golden spears. Lu Ming could no longer deal with Yi Qiuxian's attacks. He could only let them land on him. After all, Yi Qiuxian had already been heavily injured by Lu Ming, so he was no longer at his peak condition. His attacks were easier to endure. Boom, 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 boom. Lu Ming and the 3 Lord of Heaven's attacks collided. With Lu Ming's strength alone, he dispersed his power. Naturally, he could not block the attacks of the 3 most powerful Lords of Heaven. The primordial style and heaven-breaking style were defeated by the other party in no time. However, although he couldn't block the attacks, he could still weaken the power of the attacks. The attacks of the 3 Lord of Heaven were indeed weakened by a lot. They continued to fly towards Lu Ming, bombarding Lu Ming's body. Yi Qiuxian's attacks also landed on Lu Ming's body. Boom, 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 boom. Four attacks sent Lu Ming flying in the air. The powerful impact caused Lu Ming to vomit blood, worsening his injuries. Lu Ming. Not far away, Xian Yanqing was extremely worried. She wanted to rush over to help Lu Ming, but her strength was limited. It was already her limit to hold back the strongest Lord of Heaven. It was impossible for her to help Lu Ming. On the base below, Dandan Wanshun and the others were also extremely worried. What are you waiting for? Let's charge over and fight it out with them. Wanshun roared. His eyes were wide open, and his fighting spirit was soaring. The blood in his body seemed to be burning. No, with our strength, it's completely useless against the Lord of Heaven. Instead, we'll be like moths to a flame. We'll die. A peak almighty said. Then what should we do? Are we just going to watch Lu Ming get killed? Wanshun roared. Heaven Destroyer and the others were silent. They also wanted to save Lu Ming, but they didn't have the strength to do so. They would only be cannon fodder if they rushed up recklessly. They would fall into the Heavenly Palace's trap. By then, the Heavenly Palace would defeat them, and the 3,000 Heavenly Palace troops behind would take advantage of the situation to chase after them. Heaven Destroyer would suffer heavy losses. Their mission was to wait and see. Dealing with the 3,000 heavenly humans behind them was their mission. At this moment, Yi Qiuxian and the 4 Old Lord of Heaven launched a storm of attacks on Lu Ming. Lu Ming was completely in danger in front of 5 experts at the same level as him. If it wasn't for the armor formed by Qiuqiu, he would have been killed. Even so, he was in fatal danger. The attacks of the 5 experts constantly landed on his body, passing through the armor and hitting his body, worsening his injuries. Die for me. Yi Qiuxian roared in his heart. This time, he felt that Lu Ming was dead for sure. He wouldn't have another chance. Not only that, but the others also thought so. The strongest Lord of Heaven of the heavenly human tribe was still too many. It was too difficult for anyone who wasn't the strongest Lord of Heaven to block the strongest Lord of Heaven. Ugh. Lu Ming spat out a few more mouthfuls of blood. To be honest, his injuries were already very serious. Many of his muscles and bones were broken, and his organs were almost destroyed. Not only that, his soul was also attacked and the light was a little dim. If this continued, he would really die. No, I won't die here. I won't accept this. How can I die in the hands of Yi Qiuxian and those old guys? Lu Ming roared in his heart and crazily unleashed his remaining strength. His body was surrounded by light. Tens of thousands of cells shone brighter than the stars, forming a yellow mud road that extended into the depths of the darkness. At this moment, the blood stain on the yellow mud road suddenly emitted a blood-red luster. A wisp of energy seeped into Lu Ming's body. Boom. Lu Ming felt as if a star had exploded in his body. An extremely powerful energy filled his body. Not only was his taboo power instantly restored, but his injuries were also healed in an instant. Not only that, his current strength had completely surpassed his peak and reached the highest level in his history. Chapter 4782. This power. Lu Ming's eyes lit up in excitement. This was because he was very familiar with this power. He had accidentally triggered it before. Back in the Thousand Autumn battlefield, in the immortal burial sea of blood, they were surrounded by the twin brothers of the celestial race. At that time, the twin brothers used a joint attack to put them in a desperate situation. At that time, a strand of power accidentally entered Lu Ming's body from the blood stains on the yellow mud road. It increased Lu Ming's combat strength greatly, allowing him to successfully defeat the twin brothers' joint attack and kill many of their opponents. Now this strand of power was almost the same as the one back then. The difference was that Lu Ming's current strength was many times stronger than before. Therefore, when this strand of power entered his body, his combat strength was even stronger than before. Kill, 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 die. At this moment, the four strongest old men, the Lord of Heaven and Yi Qiuxian, once again charged towards Lu Ming. They surrounded him from different directions and launched a terrifying attack, wanting to kill Lu Ming in one fell swoop. You're the ones who are going to die. Lu Ming roared. The vast and surging power in his body surged wildly into the war god's spear. Then he used the sky-breaking style, and 5 spear lights burst out. One of the spear lights bore the brunt of the collision with Yi Qiuxian's sword light. Before this, Lu Ming could never block Yi Qiuxian's attack by splitting his power into 5, even if Yi Qiuxian was seriously injured. But now, when the two attacks collided, there was a violent explosion. Yi Qiuxian's sword light trembled violently, and then exploded with a bang. The spear light did not stop. Under Yi Qiuxian's horrified gaze, it pierced his chest. The armor on Yi Qiuxian's body caved in. Although it was not pierced, a part of the powerful force still penetrated Yi Qiuxian's armor and struck his heart. Yi Qiuxian screamed and retreated rapidly. His heart was shattered by this force. He spat out large mouthfuls of blood and his face was pale. Boom. Boom. Immediately after, Lu Ming's other 4 spear lights collided with the 4 old and strongest Lord of Heaven. The 4 spear auras clashed against the 4 golden battle spears, causing a violent explosion. The incomparably sharp qi swept out in all directions. In the end, the spear light dissipated, but the golden spear was also blocked. The 4 old Lord of Heaven stared in shock, their eyes wide with disbelief. There was also Yi Qiuxian, who was about the same. The attacks of the 5 most powerful Lord of Heaven had been blocked. How was this possible? Why did Lu Ming's battle prowess suddenly become so strong? Lu Ming's cultivation was only at the 8th level of the Divine Lord realm, but his battle prowess had reached the level of the strongest Lord of Heaven. This was already extremely terrifying and inconceivable. This was already a battle that transcended many levels. In terms of battle prowess, Lu Ming was on the same level as the 5 of them. Logically speaking, he should at most be on par with one of them. Even with the addition of Qiuqiu, they only had the battle prowess of 2 Lord of Heaven. Against the 5 of them, they would only be beaten, suppressed, and killed. How had Lu Ming's battle prowess suddenly soared? While they were still in a daze, Lu Ming had already made his move. His body seemed to transform into spear light as he used the heaven-cleaving style to its peak. He transformed into a dazzling spear light that stabbed toward one of the old and strongest Lord of Heaven. Fast, it was simply too fast. In almost an instant, the spear light had reached the other party. Roar! The muscles of the old and strongest Lord of Heaven tightened, and his eyes widened. He let out a bestial roar, and his golden battle spear trembled and flew out in an attempt to block Lu Ming's attack. However, he was slightly distracted just now, causing him to miss the best time to defend. In a battle between experts, the slightest difference could lead to a huge difference. This moment of distraction made it difficult for him to erupt his power to the peak in such a short time. Moreover, the current Lu Ming's battle prowess had already surpassed his by a large margin. With a clang, although the golden battle spear hit the war god's spear, it was immediately sent flying. The spear light did not stop at all, and continued to stab toward the other party. Puff! The spear light accurately pierced through the forehead of the old and strongest Lord of Heaven, piercing through his head. The terrifying power instantly tore the other party's soul into ashes. The other party's body, which was originally filled with a terrifying aura, also shriveled up like a punctured balloon, leaving behind only an old and frail body. One of the strongest heaven monarchs had died. This was the first strongest Lord of Heaven to die in battle since the war began. However, he was from the celestial tribe. This was beyond everyone's expectations. Originally, everyone thought that even if an existence on the level of the strongest Lord of Heaven was killed, it would definitely be from the Heaven Destroyer or the demons. No one would have thought that it would be from the celestial tribe. After killing this old and strongest Lord of Heaven, Lu Ming did not stop at all. His figure flashed as he charged toward another old and strongest Lord of Heaven. The reason why Lu Ming did not immediately charge toward Yi Qiuxian was mainly because Lu Ming was not confident. Yi Qiuxian's equipment was too good. The armor and sword on his body were all extremely high-grade origin-grade divine weapons. If he charged toward Yi Qiuxian immediately, he might not be able to kill Yi Qiuxian in one move. In that case, not only would he not be able to kill Yi Qiuxian, but he would also be wasting a lot of time. As for the old and strongest Lord of Heaven, it was indeed effective and he successfully killed one of the other party. This was the strongest Lord of Heaven. In the era where the source energy did not appear, this was an incomparably huge loss. Previously, the 4 heavenly palace only had a total of 4 strongest Lord of Heaven. As for the 4 demon royal tribes, they only had 1 strongest demon master each. Looking at the entire Heaven Destroyer, not counting their trump cards, there were only 2 strongest demon masters. From this, it could be seen how precious a strongest Lord of Heaven was. At this moment, Lu Ming had already charged toward the second person. This person finally reacted. With a long roar, 3 types of ultimate heavenly powers erupted and were pushed to the extreme. His entire body was covered in a dazzling glow. A terrifying power surged into the golden spear as he stabbed out with all his might. Clang! The golden spear collided with Lu Ming's God of War spear. The all-out attack of the strongest Lord of Heaven was indeed shocking. This time, this person was not sent flying by the golden spear like the previous person. However, Lu Ming's current strength was too strong. A terrifying power surged into this person's body through the golden spear. This person's body shook violently as he retreated rapidly. The arm that was holding the golden spear let out cracking sounds. Clearly, the bones in his arm had been shattered. Come and help me. Let's join forces. This person is too monstrous. The old Lord of Heaven roared, his voice filled with fear. Ever since his combat strength reached the level of the strongest Lord of Heaven, he had never felt such fear in the Divine Master realm. The combat strength of the strongest Lord of Heaven was almost the strongest combat strength in the Divine Master realm. Monstrous geniuses like Yi Immortal and Yi Qiuxian were figures that only appeared once in countless eras. It was almost impossible to meet them. Chapter 4783. This old Lord of Heaven had never encountered monsters like Yi Immortal and Yi Qiuxian. In his era, he was basically the strongest Divine Master. However, when he faced Lu Ming, he felt extremely weak. He had the illusion that he was facing an Origin Realm expert. If it were not for the fact that he was facing an Origin Realm expert, he really would have thought that he was facing an Origin Realm expert. Such a monster was not someone he could deal with alone. The other 2 old Lord of Heaven charged at Lu Ming with all their strength. Yi Qiuxian suppressed his fear and charged at Lu Ming. Qiuqiu! Lu Ming sent a message to Qiu. At the same time, he continued to charge at the old Lord of Heaven that he had just injured. The moment he charged out, Qiu unleashed an illusory pillar of light. The pillar of light enveloped the old man. The old man's body, which was about to retreat, immediately stiffened. His eyes were filled with shock. Kill. The other two old Lord of Heaven attacked with all their strength when they saw this. They wanted to force Lu Ming to stop. If it was before, Lu Ming would only be able to defend and dodge with all his strength. He would not be able to attack at all. But now swish. 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 The war god's spear vibrated and 3 spear lights erupted. 2 of the spear lights flew toward the 2 old Lord of Heaven that had come to help. The 3rd spear light shot toward the old Lord of Heaven that was enveloped by the illusory pillar of light. As for Yi Qiuxian, Lu Ming could not be bothered with him. He planned to take his attack head-on. Now that Lu Ming was enveloped by the power of the bloodstains, not only did his strength increase, but his defense also increased by several times. Coupled with Qiu's armor, the heavily injured Yi Qiuxian could not do anything to him. As expected, when Yi Qiuxian's attack landed on Lu Ming's body, the powerful impact passed through the armor, but was blocked by the power of the bloodstains. It only caused a slight tremor to Lu Ming. As for the 2 old Lord of Heaven who came to the rescue, they were blocked by Lu Ming's 2 spear lights. The 3rd spear ray shot towards the Lord of Heaven, who was enveloped by the illusory light pillar. With a poochie sound, this old and most powerful Lord of Heaven followed in the footsteps of the one before him. His forehead was pierced, and his soul was annihilated. Another powerful Lord of Heaven had fallen. Killing 2 of the most powerful Lord of Heaven in a row happened in a very short period of time. At this moment, everyone on the Heaven Destroyer base and the Heavenly Human Tribe battleship were dumbfounded. Then the Heaven Destroyer base burst into cheers. It was too exciting. Lu Ming's power suddenly skyrocketed, and he killed 2 of the most powerful Lord of Heaven, which gave them hope of victory. The expressions of the heavenly humans on the Heavenly Human battleship changed drastically, and became extremely ugly. Some of them even had fear in their eyes. It was too terrifying. Those were the strongest heavenly monarchs, and they were killed just like that. 1 spear, 1 kill. The visual impact was too strong. It made all the heavenly human race feel cold all over, as if they had fallen into an ice cellar. Damn it! Ye Immortal shouted. Even though he had lived for countless years, and was used to countless grand scenes and was extremely resilient, he still could not stay calm. What's so bad about that? This beautiful scene is worthy of praise and remembrance. Gu Changfeng burst into laughter. Right, it's worthy of remembrance. Ha! Lion also laughed. The Heaven Destroyer and the demons were full of fighting spirit, and the confidence they had lost was restored. If this continued, they could win. Lu Ming is so terrifying. Below Zixian, Ying Kong and the others were dumbfounded. Ha ha ha, I knew it. I knew this kid still had a trick up his sleeve. Do you think I'm that easy to deal with? Dandan burst into laughter. Lu Ming, Xian Yanqing's eyes flashed. She completely relaxed and focused on dealing with her opponent. Why? Yi Qiuxian's body trembled and his eyes were red with fear. He kept backing away and didn't dare to get close to Lu Ming. He had been frightened by Lu Ming. He felt that Lu Ming was born to restrain him. He was his nemesis. He felt that he would never be able to surpass Lu Ming. Yes, after so many defeats, he had already developed an inner demon, and Lu Ming was his inner demon. His confidence in himself had been shaken. In the future, he might be afraid when he saw Lu Ming. At this moment, Lu Ming didn't care how much shock he had caused. He only saw the other 2 old heavenly humans. Swish. Like a streak of light, he charged toward the 3rd elderly heavenly human tribe cultivator. However, the remaining 2 heaven monarchs, who were the strongest among them, had already gathered together. The 2 of them waved their golden spears and stabbed at Lu Ming's 2 vital points. The divine war spear vibrated and stabbed twice. Clang. Clang. The 2 old and strongest heaven monarchs retreated rapidly. In a head-on fight, the 2 Lord of Heaven were no match for Lu Ming. Lu Ming walked in the air and his energy was violent. The divine war spear swept out like a dragon, and the sky was filled with spear auras. The 2 old Lord of Heaven were pushed back continuously. The two most powerful old heaven monarchs were completely suppressed. Yi Qiuxian, what are you waiting for? Yi Immortal roared. His voice shook the sky. Yi Qiuxian shuddered and finally reacted. However, when he looked at Lu Ming, there was a trace of hesitation in his eyes. He actually didn't attack immediately. Do it, Yi Qiuxian. If you don't do it, you can forget about reaching reciprocity for the rest of your life. Only by doing it, overcoming fear, and killing Lu Ming can you complete your transformation and become even stronger. Only then can you surpass me. Yi Immortal roared. This time he used a communication technique. His voice boomed in Yi Qiuxian's ears like thunder. Yi Qiuxian's body shook violently. Madness filled his eyes. He roared and charged towards Lu Ming. At this moment, another pillar of light shot out from Lu Ming's chest. Qiuqiu had attacked. If Qiuqiu attacked by himself, he would only be able to fight to a draw with one of the Lord of Heaven. However, when he cooperated with Lu Ming to support him, the effects they could unleash far exceeded his own battle prowess. He didn't need anything else. Just his defense and the Pillar of Light could greatly increase Lu Ming's strength. The Pillar of Light enveloped one of the old Lord of Heaven. His movements stiffened. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Lu Ming used the Sky Splitter to attack this person. Stop! The other old Lord of Heaven roared. He attacked wildly in an attempt to stop Lu Ming. He even began to burn his divine force, pushing his battle prowess to a terrifying level. However, he was still not Lu Ming's opponent. With a boom, the old man was sent flying. He spat out a mouthful of blood. Lu Ming! Yi Qiuxian roared. He ignored his injuries. At the same time, he also burned his divine force to attack Lu Ming. He didn't care about the consequences. His goal was to defeat the inner demon in his heart. After burning his divine force, Yi Qiuxian's battle prowess finally reached its peak. He had overcome his injuries. You're courting death. Lu Ming swung his war god's spear at Yi Qiuxian. Chapter 4784. With Lu Ming's current combat strength, a full-powered spear strike was simply too powerful. The void shattered and everything turned into nothingness. Even time was distorted. Boom. Finally, the war god's spear struck Yi Qiuxian's stomach. Ah! Yi Qiuxian screamed in agony. The armor on his body caved in at a speed visible to the naked eye. Of course, it wasn't pierced through. It was just deformed. The terrifying power penetrated the armor. Although the armor absorbed a large portion of the power, the remaining power was still significant. Yi Qiuxian's body directly exploded into two. The destructive power caused his body to shatter into pieces. Fortunately, his vital points were saved. For example, his soul and the universe bridge. He screamed in agony and circulated his energy frantically to heal his injured body. At the same time, he controlled his body and flew towards the Yi Immortal. At the same time he shouted, "Patriarch, save me." Yi Qiuxian, Lu Ming's eyes flickered. He wanted to chase after Yi Qiuxian and finish him off once and for all. However, Lu Ming didn't make a move in the end. Yi Qiuxian had many life-saving means. He was also protected by the source-level divine weapon. It was easy to severely injure him, but it wasn't that easy to kill him. One would need to be many times more powerful than Yi Qiuxian to reduce his body to ashes. With Lu Ming's current strength, it wasn't that easy to reduce Yi Qiuxian's body to ashes through the source-level divine weapon. Moreover, Yi Qiuxian was flying towards the Yi Immortal. It was even harder to kill him. Therefore, he might as well continue to kill the old and strongest Lord of Heaven. This was a rare opportunity. Who knew when Lu Ming would be able to borrow the power of the bloodstain again? This was because the power of the bloodstain wasn't under his control. It wasn't something he could use whenever he wanted. Without the power of the bloodstain, he wouldn't be able to kill the strongest Lord of Heaven that easily. Therefore, Lu Ming had to seize the opportunity to kill as many of the strongest Lord of Heaven as possible. Even though two of the most powerful Lord of Heaven of the heavenly human tribe had been slain, their numbers were still far greater than that of the Heaven Destroyer and the demon combined. With one more person taken out, the Heaven Destroyer would have an additional layer of protection. These thoughts only flashed through Lu Ming's mind for a moment. It didn't take much time for Lu Ming to come to a decision. The war god's spear vibrated and turned into a dazzling spear light that flew towards an old lord of heaven. At the same time, Lu Ming struck out with his palm, causing a huge continent to form and crush down on the other lord of heaven. With Lu Ming's current strength, the power of the heaven-breaking style, and the great desolation style was truly astonishing. The two old and strongest Lord of Heaven did not dare to be careless and naturally defended with all their might. At this time, Qiuqiu shot out another illusory light beam, enveloping an old and powerful Lord of Heaven. Swoosh! Lu Ming seized the opportunity and shot out, grabbing the war god's spear that had been sent flying back. He became one with the spear and stabbed at the old man. The old man was enveloped by the illusory light beam and stiffened for a moment. He wanted to resist, but it was already too late. The other old and powerful Lord of Heaven had just shattered the great desolation style and retreated. It was too late for him to help. Blood spurted out. Another old and powerful Lord of Heaven was pierced between the eyebrows by Lu Ming. His soul was destroyed and he died on the spot. The third one. This was already the third Lord of Heaven who had died at the hands of Lu Ming. In a short period of time, 3 of the most powerful Lord of Heaven had been killed by Lu Ming. All the heavenly human tribe members felt a chill run down their spines. With this kind of combat strength and the speed at which he killed the most powerful Lord of Heaven, wasn't he faster than the Yi Immortal and stronger than the Yi Immortal? If this continued, wouldn't it not be long before the most powerful Lord of Heaven of the heavenly human tribe died at the hands of Lu Ming? The remaining old and powerful Lord of Heaven felt his entire body tremble. He no longer dared to continue fighting with Lu Ming. He frantically retreated, wishing that he could get as far away from Lu Ming as possible. Retreat. At this time, the Yi Immortal roared. He was very unwilling to accept this. The flames of anger in his heart burned fiercely. When he looked at Lu Ming, his eyes were filled with a terrifying killing intent. However, he was a decisive person. He knew that if this continued, not only would they not gain any benefits, but they would also suffer greater losses. They could only retreat temporarily and think of a way later. Following the Yi Immortal's order, the other most powerful Lord of Heaven of the heavenly human tribe, including the 2 forbidden puppets and the 4 primitive immortal puppets, quickly retreated. Don't even think about leaving. Kill. Don't let them leave. Lion, Tiger, and the others roared and chased after the other party. This was especially so for the 4 demons who were burning their vitality. Even if they stopped now, they would only die. Their deaths were irreversible. Naturally, they wanted to kill as many of the other party as possible. Lu Ming also wouldn't let the other party escape so easily. It would be difficult for him to borrow the power of the bloodstains next time. Exterminating Lord of Heaven, didn't you want to kill me? Fight with me. Lu Ming targeted the Lord of Heaven and chased after him. However, the Lord of Heaven didn't dare to fight with Lu Ming now. He was scared half to death when he saw Lu Ming and frantically retreated. Lu Ming, I'll fight you. Yi Immortal roared. After exchanging a blow with Gu Changfeng, he quickly retreated. Then he slashed at Lu Ming with an earth-shattering sword light. The sword light was so terrifying that it traversed billions of miles in an instant. Lu Ming swung the Spear of Ares to counter the attack. With a clang, the sword light of Yi Immortal was blocked. However, Lu Ming's body was also blocked. What a powerful force. It's not any weaker than my current state. Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. Yi Immortal's strength was indeed terrifying. It wasn't any weaker than Lu Ming's current state. The reason why Lu Ming was able to kill the Lord of Heaven faster than Yi Immortal was because of Qiuqiu's cooperation. Qiuqiu's illusory light beam could freeze the opponent's movements and make them fall into an illusion for a short period of time. Otherwise, it wouldn't be that easy for Lu Ming to kill the Lord of Heaven. At the very least, he would have to put in more effort. You guys retreat first. I'll stop them. Yi Immortal's voice was heard. At the same time, his body was surrounded by a dazzling glow. Sword of the Heavens, destruction of the sun. Yi Immortal slashed out with his sword. Suddenly, a sun appeared in the void. Instantly the sun shone brightly. This was no ordinary sunlight. That was because every single ray of sunlight was a terrifying sword chi. In an instant, countless sword chis filled the void. There were too many of them. It was simply too many. Lu Ming's expression changed. he shouted, and the spear of Ares rapidly enlarged. At the same time, it spun rapidly and covered an area to block the sword energy. Not only did he have to block it himself, but he also had to block it for the others. This kind of large-scale attack was indeed weaker when its power was spread out. Someone like the Lord of Heaven would have no problem blocking it. However, the Heaven Destroyer, the demons, and the others, such as Rongjin, Tangjian, and hundreds of other experts, weren't as strong as the Lord of Heaven. This kind of sword energy was a fatal threat to them. Chapter 4785. All of you back off. Gu Changfeng roared as he used all his strength to block the sword qi. At the same time, Shi, Hu Guemo and the others also used all their strength to block the sword qi and prevent it from reaching them. As for the several hundred experts, they rapidly retreated. In this way, Lu Ming and the group were blocked. The heavenly human race experts seized the opportunity to charge onto the war chariot. The war chariot rumbled as it prepared to leave. Sword of the heavenly human, destruction of the sun. Yi Wuxia slashed out with his sword again. Another round of sun appeared, shining brightly. This guy is really abnormal. He's only a 9th layer divine master, but he can continuously use such a powerful Genesis technique. Guemo wanted to curse out loud. Guemo had also been at the origin realm, and had naturally comprehended his own Genesis technique. However, he couldn't even use a Genesis technique with his current peak divine master cultivation. It was clear that the requirements to use a Genesis technique were shockingly high. Generally speaking, only those at the origin realm could use a Genesis technique. Yi Immortal could continuously use a Genesis technique at the divine master level. It was indeed shocking. However, it was normal. Yi Immortal's cultivation had been suppressed to the 1st layer of the divine master realm when he was fighting for the human king's body in the Halo world, but he could still use a Genesis technique. The Genesis technique he used now was many times more powerful than a 1st layer divine master's. After using this move, Yi Wuxia's body rapidly retreated. When I reach the peak divine master level, it will be the day of your destruction. Yi Immortal's voice rang out as he landed on a warship. The warship started up and tore through space, leaving in the blink of an eye. After the warship left, the sun also dissipated. He escaped really quickly. Shi's eyes widened in anger. He was rather displeased. Gu Changfeng, Lu Ming and the other experts present wore grave expressions. Yi Immortal's parting words echoed in their ears. These words gave them a lot of pressure. Yi Immortal was only a 9th tier divine master, but he was already so terrifying. How powerful would he be when he broke through to the peak of the divine master realm? Wouldn't killing the most powerful Lord of Heaven be as easy as pie? At that time, who would be able to defeat him? However, everyone's gazes immediately turned to Lu Ming. In their eyes, Lu Ming was also a monster. Lu Ming's cultivation was even lower than the Yi Immortals. He was only an 8th tier god lord, but he had just killed 3 of the strongest Lord of Heaven, and turned the tide of the battle. He was even more of a monster than the Yi Immortal. Perhaps Lu Ming could stop Yi Immortal? Lu Ming naturally understood what everyone was thinking. He couldn't help but smile bitterly. He was not as glorious as he appeared to be. The power of the bloodstains was not under his control at all. It was not something that he could borrow whenever he wanted. It was completely dependent on its mood. Although it took time to reach the peak of the Divine Master Realm from the 9th tier Divine Master Realm, it was not that easy to break through. Xian Yanqing had been stuck in this realm for more than 1,000 years, but he still had not broken through. It was clear how difficult it was. However, Yi Immortal could not be measured by common sense. He was known as the strongest existence in the history of the heavenly human tribe. It was not impossible for someone like him to break through to the peak of the Divine Master Realm in a short time. Lu Ming was only an 8th tier Divine Master. Could he catch up? More importantly, he lacked resources. Without resources, it would take a long time for him to slowly cultivate to the 9th tier Divine Master Realm, let alone break through to the peak of the Divine Master Realm. Lu Ming only had the confidence to fight Yi Immortal when they were at the same level. It was almost impossible to fight someone like Yi Immortal. One had to know that Lu Ming had been defeated when they were at the same level. Haha, don't be so disheartened. No matter what, we killed 3 of the strongest Lord of Heaven today. The heavenly human tribe must be bleeding from the bottom of their hearts. It's really satisfying. The lion laughed loudly. That's right. After today's battle, the heavenly human tribe won't dare to attack us in the near future. At least we'll have some time to recuperate. The group chatted as they walked back to the Heaven Destroyer base. The power is starting to dissipate. Lu Ming felt the power of the bloodstains start to dissipate. They turned into thin strands of blood and returned to the bloodstains. Lu Ming felt his body tremble and weaken. This feeling made him feel somewhat uncomfortable. It was as if he had lost most of his power. Everyone, the future is in your hands. At this moment, an old fiend said. This was the expert who had burned his life to activate the supreme demon treasure. His life was about to come to an end. His body became somewhat illusory and unreal. It was as if he would turn into specks of light and disappear at any moment. Ninth uncle, our tribe will never forget your contributions. Zixian walked over with tears in her eyes. This old man was Zixian's ninth uncle, a direct descendant of the purple-eyed demon royal family. It's nothing. In the history of the war against the celestial race, how many of our ancestors have died? It doesn't make much difference to me. At least, I can see my race walk out of the dark universe while I'm still alive. Zixian's ninth uncle smiled and waved his hand. The supreme treasure of the purple-eyed demon race flew to Zixian and disappeared into her body. After handing over the supreme treasure, his body turned into a rain of light and dissipated. At this time, the other three demons who had burned their lives also turned into a rain of light and dissipated. The supreme treasures of each race flew back to the hands of the representatives of each race. There was a sad atmosphere among the demons. It seems that the sword ancestor saw a corner of the future. It's not complete. Lu Ming thought. Back then, Fei Huang told Lu Ming and the others that Tang Feng saw a vague corner of the future in the depths of the ruins of the universe. The vague corner of the future showed that the demons would become their great enemy. But now it seemed that Tang Feng only saw half of it. In the beginning, the demons did become their great enemy because they were controlled by the heavenly human tribe and besieged the Heaven Destroyer base. Later, the situation changed. The demons became their allies and fought against the heavenly human tribe together. Tang Feng might have only seen part of the future, and not the latter part. Lu Ming, how many chaos crystals do you need to break through to the 9th level of the Divine Master Realm? At this time, Lion suddenly looked at Lu Ming. I need at least 5 billion chaos crystals. Lu Ming was slightly stunned. Then he said without hiding anything. 5 billion. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. This number was too terrifying. Where could they find so many chaos crystals? Now Lu Ming is the key to our fight against the heavenly human tribe. This time, he killed 3 of the strongest Lord of Heaven. This is a great contribution. I suggest that we gather the chaos crystals and main divine herbs we get later, and help Lu Ming break through to the 9th level of the Divine Master Realm. What do you think? Lion said. This? Lu Ming was taken aback. He didn't expect Lion to make such a suggestion. Of course I agree. I agree 10,000 times. Wan Shan, Dandan, Guemo and the others who were close to Lu Ming immediately shouted. Chapter 4786. Of course, Dandan, Wan Shan, Xian Yanqing, and the others agreed wholeheartedly with the idea of pooling the resources and giving them to Lu Ming for the time being. The other members of Heaven Destroyer, Zixian, Yin Kong, and the others looked at each other and hesitated. However, they nodded in agreement in the end. Even if some of them were unwilling, they had no choice. Their biggest threat was the heavenly human tribe and the Yi Immortal. Once the Yi Immortal reached the peak of the Almighty Realm, no one would be able to defeat it. The only person who stood a chance against the Yi Immortal was Lu Ming. Gu Chongfeng's cultivation had already reached the peak of the Almighty Realm. This meant that it would be difficult for him to improve his combat strength at the Almighty Realm. However, Lu Ming was different. He was only at the 8th tier of the Almighty Realm, and had a lot of room for improvement. He was the only one who had the potential to fight against the Yi Immortal. This concerned the survival of Heaven Destroyer and the demons. Even if they were unwilling, they had no choice. Only by pooling the resources and helping Lu Ming achieve a breakthrough could they fight against the Yi Immortal. Everyone, Lu Ming, will remember your kindness. Don't worry, I won't use these resources for nothing. When I obtain more in the future, I'll definitely repay you in full. Lu Ming cupped his fists and said, now was not the time to be courteous. He indeed needed a large amount of resources. If he were to rely on himself, it would take a long time. Lu Ming, don't be happy too early. More than 5 billion primeval gems. This number is too terrifying. Although it is easier to obtain primeval gems now, it is still extremely difficult to obtain such a terrifying number of primeval gems. I don't know how long it will take. Lion one sighed. The others also sighed. Indeed, more than 5 billion chaos crystals was an astronomical number. It was too much. They could only try their best. I understand. I'll think of a way myself. Lu Ming nodded. Then, everyone began to discuss the arrangements for the future. Although the heavenly human tribe was repelled this time, the situation would never return to the way it was before. In the past, the Heaven Destroyer had occupied a territory by itself, while the 4 myriad demon royal tribes each occupied a territory and fought against the heavenly human tribe. However, things were different now. Although the heavenly human tribe had been defeated, they still had 17 of the Lord of Heaven's battle prowess. Their overall strength was still far superior to the other forces. As for the evil demons, they had suffered heavy losses previously. The 4 great royal clans only had about 7,000 demon masters left. Their strength was not as strong as before. Now if they each occupied an area like before, it would be very easy for the heavenly human tribe to defeat them one by one. Therefore, in the future, Heaven Destroyer and the demons would have to continue working together. In the end, they planned to use the Heaven Destroyer station as their core, and expand outwards to occupy a territory where they could recuperate and obtain resources. After the discussion, they began to take action. Not long after, the news of this pinnacle battle quickly spread throughout the universe and to every race, causing an uproar. The living beings of the various races were first shocked by the terror of the heavenly human tribe. They could actually mobilize 20 of the Lord of Heaven's strongest powerhouses. It was truly terrifying. However, what shocked all the living beings even more was Lu Ming. Lu Ming actually killed 3 of the Lord of Heaven's strongest powerhouses of the heavenly human tribe alone. He turned the tide in one fell swoop and defeated the heavenly human tribe. This kind of battle prowess was simply shocking. When everyone first heard this, they were dumbfounded and thought that they had heard wrongly. After repeated confirmation, they found that this matter was absolutely true. In an instant, the name Lu Ming spread throughout the universe. All the larger races had heard of Lu Ming's name. People called Lu Ming one of the most powerful forbidden physiques in history. Since the new era, there had been quite a number of forbidden physiques in the universe. There were definitely more than 10 of them. However, even among the forbidden physiques, there were strong ones and weak ones. Among them, the most powerful ones were undoubtedly the Lord of the Heavenly Court, Soul Life, and the Lord of the Ancient Divine Court. There was no need to mention their strength and battle records. They had each destroyed a heavenly palace with their own strength. They were both amazing and unprecedented figures. The other ones were the Forbidden Sword Ancestor, Tang Feng, and the immeasurable heavenly demon Flying Phoenix. Their strength was also extremely terrifying. People thought that they were on par with the Lord of the Heavenly Court and the Lord of the Ancient Divine Court. Especially Tang Feng, who vaguely had the title of the most powerful forbidden physique. And Lu Ming was considered to be on par with the 4 of them. One had to know that the forbidden physiques in history were all amazing people with great luck and unparalleled talent. Lu Ming was only at the Divine Master realm, but he was considered to be on par with the 4 of them. It was definitely a great honor. Everywhere in the universe, Lu Ming's name was discussed. However, some of the races had other thoughts. In the next month, the universe returned to peace. The heavenly human tribe retreated to the heavenly palace and didn't seem to have any intention of attacking. Lu Ming also went into seclusion to cultivate again. His main task was to comprehend the 3000th ancient secret technique and the battle character art. The 3000th ancient secret technique was too difficult to comprehend. Lu Ming shifted his focus to the battle character art. As long as he could cultivate the battle character art to the point where it could be activated at any time, the battle character art would be completed. In the future, he wouldn't need to carry the battle character art with him. He could activate the battle character art at any time. In that case, he could give the battle character art to others to use. For example, Xianyanqing or the Wanshan tribe. It would increase their battle strength. A month later, Lu Ming suddenly received news that the Battle Saint tribe, the Buddha race, the Demon race, and the Spirit race had come together to visit the Heaven Destroyer and Lu Ming. Why have the people of the 4 great races suddenly come here? Lu Ming's eyes flickered. These 4 races were among the top 10 races. They were also the 4 races that had announced that they would leave the Heavenly Palace. All these years, they had been living in the remote areas of the universe ruins, living there and avoiding war. They must have a purpose for coming here. Lu Ming decided to meet them. When Lu Ming arrived at the meeting hall of the Heaven Destroyer, he discovered that there were already many people here. Lion, Rongjin, Tangjian, and the other upper echelons of the Heaven Destroyer were all present. In addition, the experts of the 4 races were seated on the seats on both sides of the hall. Brother Lu, it has been many years since we last met. Your glory is even greater than before. You have already left me far behind. As soon as Lu Ming arrived, he heard a heroic voice. Brother Yuanwen, how have you been? Lu Ming smiled. The one who spoke just now was the peerless genius of the Battle Saint tribe, Battle God Yuanwen. This time, there were more than 10 people from the Battle Saint tribe. They were all God Lord Realm experts. The Battle God Yuanwen was the representative. Brother Lu, compared to you, I'm far inferior. I'm really ashamed. Battle God Yuanwen smiled bitterly. He recalled the days when he competed with Lu Ming. Back then, he was the number 1 genius on the quasi-emperor ranking list. His name shook the universe. Later on in the Dark Pit Devil Mountain, he even fought with Lu Ming. At that time, the 2 of them were evenly matched. But now he was far inferior to Lu Ming. Chapter 4787. Battle God Yuanwen was a famous genius in the universe. Apart from the celestial race, the quasi-immortal race, and the evil demons, he was definitely one of the top geniuses in the universe. However, compared to Lu Ming, he was worlds apart. Lu Ming was now in existence that could kill 3 of the strongest Lord of Heaven, while he was only a 2nd-level Divine Master. Although this cultivation speed could be considered extremely fast among the younger generation, it also depended on who he was compared to. Brother Yuanwen is too polite. Please take a seat. Lu Ming smiled and waved his hand. Then he sat down beside Lion and the others. Everyone, Lu Ming is here. Can you tell us the purpose of your visit? Lion grinned. Ba. Our purpose in coming here is to seek for cooperation. A representative of the Buddha race chanted Buddha's name. This was an old monk. His entire body was golden like brass. Above his head, there was a ring of Buddha's light that emitted a gentle radiance. This old monk from the Buddha clan was a peak Divine Master expert. He had an extremely high status in the Buddha clan. Seek cooperation? Everyone is here for this? Lion's gaze swept across the representatives of the Battle Saint tribe, Demon race, and Spirit race. Indeed. To be honest, the celestial race's actions are too despicable. They secretly attacked the experts of our races. Our 4 races were the first to leave the Heavenly Palace. We originally planned to find a territory in the universe's ruins to live and reproduce. We wanted to stay away from the battle and not participate in the universe's disputes. But now, it seems that it's impossible to stay out of it. An expert of the spirit race spoke. This person was a fire spirit. His entire body was fiery red as if flames were burning. What do you mean? Could it be that the celestial race is going to attack you? Lion asked. Although they haven't taken action yet, given the celestial race's style of doing things, it's only a matter of time. Moreover, the celestial race's current strength is too shocking. In the vast universe, only you can fight against the celestial race. The expert of the spirit race said. You must have taken a fancy to Lu Ming's potential, and think that he can fight against the celestial race's experts. Otherwise, why didn't I see you guys come earlier? Lion chuckled. The 2 masters of the Buddha clan and the Spirit clan blushed. Lion had hit the nail on the head. The previous battle allowed them to see Lu Ming's terror. Lu Ming was already able to kill 3 of the most powerful Lord of Heaven, and he would definitely become even stronger in the future. In the future, it would not be impossible for him to completely resist the heavenly human tribe, or even suppress the heavenly human tribe. And the strength of the celestial race also made them apprehensive. Now they had 17 experts at the level of the strongest Lord of Heaven. Except for the mysterious quasi-saint race, they were truly unrivaled. Would the heavenly human tribe, who possessed such power, spare the other tribes? Once he was free, he would probably deal with them. Therefore, the 4 clans discussed in secret and decided to join the Heaven Destroyer. That was why they had come together. Senior is right. We do believe that with Brother Lu's talent, you'll definitely be able to deal with Yi Immortal, Yi Qiuxian, and the others in the future. That's why we're here to seek cooperation. Battle God Yuanwen said straightforwardly. Haha, this little brother is still the most straightforward. Lu Ming, what do you say? Lion looked at Lu Ming. We naturally welcome all of you who have come to seek cooperation against the Heavenly Palace. Lu Ming smiled faintly. There was no reason to disagree. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. Moreover, the Heavenly Palace was too strong. The Heaven Destroyer urgently needed more allies and more help. The Battle Formation Saint Tribe, Buddha Clan, Demon Clan, and Spirit Clan were all part of the top 10 tribes. Although their overall strength was far inferior to the Heavenly Human Tribe, Demon Clan, Quasi-Saint Race, and even the Heaven Destroyer. But they were not weak. Each of the 4 tribes had more than 100 Divine Masters. The total number of Divine Masters of the 4 tribes was definitely more than 500. This was a force that could not be ignored. What Lu Ming valued more were the origin realm experts of the 4 tribes. Every single one of the 10 strongest clans had several reciprocity experts. This was accumulated over a long period of time. Not to mention others, just the World Turtle and Spacetime Spirit Mouse clans had several origin realm experts. The World Turtle and Spacetime Spirit Mouse clans were not inferior to the top 10 tribes in terms of talent. They just had fewer people. The 4 tribes combined probably had close to 10 origin realm experts. The origin tribulation only lasted for 10,000 years. 1,000 years had already passed. There were only 9,000 years left before the origin tribulation was over. One could imagine that once the origin tribulation was over, the universe would become a battlefield for origin realm experts. At that time, the Heaven Destroyer would gain close to 10 origin realm experts. It would definitely be a huge help. Therefore, how could Lu Ming refuse? Hearing Lu Ming's words, the representatives of the 4 tribes smiled. The Heaven Destroyer needed their strength, and they needed the strength of the Heaven Destroyer. Facing a colossus like the Heavenly Human Tribe, only cooperation could bring about a win-win situation. Your base is very far from the Heaven Destroyer. How can we complete the details of the cooperation? Lion asked. If they were too far away, it would be difficult for them to support each other even if they cooperated. We have already gathered our clansmen and returned to our respective home planets. Then we secretly drove our home planets towards the Heaven Exterminating Army's base. I believe that it won't be long before we arrive near the Heaven Exterminating Army's territory. I'm afraid that the Heavenly Human Tribe will find out and secretly send experts to kill us. Fighting God Yuanwen said. That's easy. Next, I'll take Senior Gu Changfeng out for a walk to attract the attention of the Heavenly Human Tribe. Lu Ming said. Thank you, almsgiver Lu Ming. Excellent, excellent. The old monk of the Buddha race was overjoyed. People of the other races were also overjoyed. With Lu Ming's strength and Gu Changfeng's strength, the Heavenly Human Tribe would definitely be nervous if they went to the territory of the Heavenly Human Tribe. They probably wouldn't have the time to deal with the 4 tribes. After the discussion, Lu Ming immediately took action. He left the base of the Heaven Destroyer with Gu Changfeng and went to the territory of the Heavenly Human Tribe. Sure enough, when the Heavenly Human Tribe saw Lu Ming and Gu Changfeng coming together, they were extremely nervous. They gathered their troops and put up all kinds of defenses. It was hard for them not to be nervous after seeing the strength that Lu Ming and Gu Changfeng had shown in the previous battle. Lu Ming and Gu Changfeng definitely had the strength to make the Heavenly Human Tribe suffer a great loss. Only by focusing on defense could they resist the attacks of the two. Of course, Lu Ming and Gu Changfeng didn't intend to attack at all. Mainly because Lu Ming's strength wasn't as powerful as the heavenly human tribe thought. He couldn't use the power of the bloodstains on the yellow mud road at all. Without the power of the bloodstains, his combat power was only equal to that of the Lord of Heaven. He was no match for the heavenly human tribe at all. They were mainly there to frighten the heavenly human tribe, so that the four races could successfully relocate. Lu Ming and Gu Changfeng wandered around the territory of the heavenly human tribe for a few months, and explored a few prosperous land fragments. They found a lot of primitive crystals and divine medicines. Chapter 4788. Nowadays, some of the larger fragments of the continent were extremely prosperous. All kinds of divine herbs were everywhere, and all kinds of living beings were born. Especially the races of the universe, they all migrated to the universe ruins, bringing all kinds of desolate beasts with them. They multiplied very quickly in the universe ruins. In just a little more than 1,000 years, the shadows of these desolate beasts could be seen on many fragments. Furthermore, major-level god medicines and Yorwild's gems were constantly being produced from the fragments of the continent. The two of them explored a few fragments and found more than 100,000 chaos crystals each. To Gu Changfeng, the main divine elixir and the primordial crystal were of no use. He gave them to Lu Ming and Lu Ming accepted them without hesitation. In a few months, the home planets of the Battle Saint tribe, the Buddha race, the Demon race and the Spirit race finally moved to the territory near the Heaven Destroyer base. They formed a triangle with the Heaven Destroyer base and the Evil Demon's base, so they could support each other. At this time, Lu Ming and Gu Changfeng finally returned to the Heaven Destroyer base. After returning to the Heaven Destroyer base, Lu Ming continued to cultivate. Time passed quickly. In the blink of an eye, 200 years had passed. After 200 years of cultivation, Lu Ming finally cultivated the battle formula to perfection. He could increase his combat strength by 9 times and achieve a 100% success rate. This undoubtedly made Lu Ming's combat strength more stable. He wouldn't be unable to activate the battle formula because of a sudden battle, so his combat strength couldn't be at its peak. At this time, Lu Ming gave the battle formula to Xian Yanqing. With Xian Yanqing's current cultivation and talent, he quickly got the hang of it and cultivated to 4 times his combat strength. This made Xian Yanqing's combat strength even more powerful. When facing the strongest Lord of Heaven, he could be more at ease. Unfortunately, Lu Ming still didn't have a clue about the 3000th ancient secret skill. Even though he spent a lot of time comprehending it, he still didn't have a clue. He felt that the road ahead was boundless. It seemed that he had already comprehended the ancient secret technique, and the road ahead had already been cut off. He knew that this was an illusion, because the master of the primordial divine court had successfully comprehended the 3000 ancient secret arts. There was a precedent for this. Furthermore, he could sense from the primeval godstone that the combination of primeval secret arts was not limited to this. After all, the secret arts he had comprehended later on were quite different from the ones the archaic divine court had comprehended. I wonder if cultivating the archaic secret art created by the master of the archaic divine court will allow me to complete the 3000 archaic secret arts. Lu Ming's eyes suddenly lit up. He had relied on himself to comprehend the ancient secret arts. Now that he had reached a bottleneck, he might as well directly cultivate the ancient secret arts left behind by the archaic divine court lord. Thinking of this, Lu Ming immediately began his search. First it was in the Heaven Destroyer. Then it went to the 4 races to search for it. Finally, in the Battle Saint tribe and the Buddha race, he found an ancient secret art that he had never cultivated before. Lu Ming immediately started to comprehend it. After that, he refined one of the ancient secret arts into a secret art rune, wanting to fuse it into one of his cells. But this time, he encountered a strong resistance. The secret art rune was unable to fuse into the cell, and was repelled. Why is this the case? Fuse it for me. Lu Ming roared. He used taboo force to push the secret art rune, wanting to forcefully fuse it into the cell. But at the next moment, with a bang, the cell directly exploded. Of course, given Lu Ming's recovery ability, he could instantly recover from the explosion of a cell. However, Lu Ming's expression was somewhat gloomy. No, this was completely impossible. The secret art rune couldn't be fused into the cell at all. Lu Ming finally gave up. Could it be that I have to comprehend it myself? Lu Ming contemplated. Maybe when he was still far away from comprehending the 3,000 ancient secret arts, he could comprehend and fuse them. But now, he was only one step away from comprehending the 3,000 secret arts. This was the only explanation. It seemed that he could only rely on himself to comprehend them. Lu Ming could only comprehend the 3,000th ancient secret art by himself. In the past 200 years, most of the chaos crystals obtained by the Heaven Destroyer and the demons had been given to Lu Ming. There were about 100 million of them. To be able to obtain 100 million chaos crystals in 200 years was definitely a large number. It was many times faster than before. In the past, it would have taken a long time to accumulate 100 million chaos crystals. Before Fei Huang sealed herself, she had given Lu Ming 200 million chaos crystals. That was the accumulation of Fei Huang and other experts over a long period of time. It was measured in stellar years. How could 200 years be compared to a stellar year? However, 200 million chaos crystals was just a drop in the bucket for Lu Ming. It wouldn't be of much use at all. At this rate, it would take at least 10,000 years to gather more than 5 billion chaos crystals. 10,000 years later, the origin tribulation would be over, and the daylily would be gone. Yi Immortal would probably have broken through to the peak of the Almighty Realm. However, Lu Ming had no other choice. He could only focus on comprehending the 3,000th secret art, hoping to trigger a qualitative change and increase his combat strength. However, at this time, something big happened in the universe that attracted the attention of all forces. The location of the incident was the Dark Pit Demon Mountain. The Dark Pit Demon Mountain was a place that left a deep impression on Lu Ming. Back then, in order to participate in the Heavenly Soldier assessment in the Heavenly Palace, he needed a wisp of dark yin qi. He chased after Yin Jiuling and came to the Dark Pit Demon Mountain. In the end, he fought with the battle god Yuan One and triggered the Domain of Ascension. The Dark Pit Demon Mountain was a famous forbidden area in the universe. No one who entered the Dark Pit could come out. Only Yin Jiuling could come out because he was possessed by the dark yin qi. This time, the Dark Pit Demon Mountain underwent a huge change. Countless dark yin qi rushed out from the Dark Pit. The dark yin qi covered the sky and the earth, spreading out from the Dark Pit Demon Mountain. And the spreading speed was very fast. Galaxies and star fields were shrouded by the dark yin qi. All the creatures that were shrouded by the dark yin qi were invaded by the dark yin qi and turned into ferocious monsters. They killed each other, and even rushed out of the dark yin qi to attack others. For a time, the vast universe fell into a catastrophe. Countless creatures turned into dark yin qi monsters. In just a few decades, nearly 1/3 of the universe's territory was covered by the dark yin qi, and became an area of dark yin qi. Moreover, the dark yin qi continued to spread to the surroundings. If this continued, in less than 100 years, the entire universe and countless planets would be shrouded by the dark yin qi. The big and small races in the universe migrated to the ruins of the universe. Those who couldn't could only wait for the arrival of despair. The Dark Pit Demon Mountain actually had such a change. What's inside? Lu Ming's face was uncertain. He thought of the Taishu dynasty. Although almost all of his relatives and friends were transferred to the Heaven Destroyer Station, the Taishu dynasty was the country left behind by Jingyu. He couldn't leave it alone and let it be swallowed by the dark yin qi. Chapter 4789. Lu Ming planned to transfer the people of the Taishu dynasty to the Heaven Destroyer Station. Lu Ming didn't tell anyone. He secretly left the Heaven Destroyer Station and headed to the universe. Lu Ming broke the void and traveled at an extremely fast speed. It didn't take long for Lu Ming to arrive at the universe. As expected, Lu Ming looked into the distance. In front of him was endless darkness. The sky was filled with black fog that shrouded the vast universe. In the black fog, he could see streams of yin qi moving around. Roar at the same time. He could also hear roars. Those were the creatures that had been devoured by the yin qi. They had completely lost their consciousness and turned into yin qi monsters. Lu Ming circulated the forbidden energy to his eyes. Through the black fog, he could see many Yin-Chi monsters killing each other. These Yin-Chi monsters had different cultivation levels. Some had just broken through to the immortal state. Some were true gods, heavenly gods, divine kings, divine lords, etc. There were from the empty god realm to the divine emperor realm. As for the stronger ones, they would run away before the baleful Yin-Chi arrived. These Yin-Chi monsters were killing each other. The stronger ones would kill the weaker ones. They could absorb the Yin-Chi of the weaker ones for their own use, and improve their strength. I can't believe this can happen. If this continues, even if there aren't any powerful beings that turn into Yin-Chi monsters, terrifying monsters will be born from this kind of killing and devouring. Lu Ming's heart was a little heavy. After thinking for a while, Lu Ming decided to enter the Yin-Chi and go to the Dark Pit Demon Mountain to take a look. He wanted to see what was in the Dark Pit Demon Mountain. With the forbidden energy covering his body, Lu Ming turned into a stream of light and rushed into the Yin-Chi. Look, that person dares to rush into the Yin-Chi. How dare he? Isn't he afraid of being devoured by the Yin-Chi? Someone exclaimed. There were some other people watching in the surroundings. They were all experts of some big clans in the universe. There was no lack of divine emperors. However, even divine emperors didn't dare to enter the Yin-Chi. What astonishing speed. That's definitely a divine master expert. He should have come from the ruins of the universe. During this period of time, the top 10 tribes, including the Heavenly Human Tribe, Heaven Destroyer, and the Abyss Devils, have all sent powerful beings here. Of course, this is something that will affect the universe. These people were discussing. Not long after Lu Ming charged into the baleful Yin-Chi, several streams of baleful Yin-Chi rushed towards Lu Ming, wanting to devour Lu Ming and possess him. Lu Ming stretched out his hand and made a grabbing motion. A huge hand formed and covered the entire area, directly grabbing the few strands of baleful Yin-Chi. No matter how hard these streams of Yin-Chi tried to escape, they could not escape from Lu Ming's palm. This baleful Yin-Chi is very different from the baleful Yin-Chi that was born in the universe in the past. The extreme Yin energy is extremely dense. Is this the baleful Yin-Chi that emanates from the Dark Pit Demon Mountain? Lu Ming whispered. With a flick of his finger, layers of energy sealed the few strands of baleful Yin-Chi and kept them in a jade bottle. He would keep it first and bring it back for the Heaven Destroyer or the Abyss Devils to study. Lu Ming continued to move forward. Roar. There were roars all around. Many baleful Yin monsters rushed towards Lu Ming and launched a frenzied attack on Lu Ming. However, these baleful Yin monsters were nothing in Lu Ming's eyes. He did not even bother to attack them. He just charged past them. Wherever Lu Ming went, there was a terrifying force that tore the baleful Yin monsters apart, turning them into extreme Yin energy and dissipating. There were no baleful Yin monsters that could stop Lu Ming. In the end, Lu Ming directly used the greater teleportation technique and kept on moving towards the Dark Pit Demon Mountain. Lu Ming realized that the closer he got to the Dark Pit Demon Mountain, the denser the baleful Yin-Chi was, and the stronger the baleful Yin monsters were. There were even God Emperor realm baleful Yin monsters. These baleful Yin monsters continued to kill and devour each other. It won't be long before God Emperor realm baleful Yin monsters appear. No, they might have already appeared. Lu Ming pondered. After a period of time, Lu Ming finally got close to the Dark Pit Demon Mountain. The Dark Pit Demon Mountain did not change much from before. However, there was a huge black vortex at the top of the mountain. This was the location of the Dark Pit. This black vortex led to the Dark Pit. From time to time, a few baleful Yin-Chi would rush out from the black vortex. Heavenly Human Tribe and Quasi-Sage Tribe. Lu Ming's eyes moved. In other directions, Lu Ming saw figures flashing. They were from the Heavenly Human Tribe and Quasi-Sage Tribe. Obviously, the Heavenly Human Tribe and Quasi-Sage Tribe were not at ease with such a change in the Dark Pit Demon Mountain. They would definitely send people to investigate. Roar! Roar! Suddenly, a few terrifying roars came from the Dark Pit Demon Mountain. A few figures rushed out from the Dark Pit Demon Mountain and charged toward the people from the Quasi-Sage Tribe and Heavenly Human Tribe. Another two figures charged toward Lu Ming. Divine Master Realm Baleful Een monsters. Lu Ming's eyes flashed. These baleful Een monsters that rushed out from the dark pit Demon Mountain had indeed reached the Divine Master Realm. The two Divine Master Realm baleful Een monsters, one on the left and one on the right, surrounded Lu Ming. The eyes of these two baleful Een monsters were actually flickering with a cunning light. They had spiritual intelligence. These two baleful Een monsters were not like other baleful Een monsters that had no spiritual intelligence at all. They actually had spiritual intelligence. Perhaps after the baleful Een monsters evolved into the Divine Master Realm, they would have spiritual intelligence. That was why they did not continue to kill each other. However, the Divine Master Realm baleful Een monsters were still not in Lu Ming's eyes. Swoosh! Lu Ming pointed two fingers in succession. Two finger forces burst out and shot toward the two baleful Een monsters. Lu Ming was very powerful. He could strike at any time. His power was astonishingly strong and his speed was astonishingly fast. Bam! Bam! The two baleful Een monsters directly exploded and dissipated into the power of extreme Een. On the other side, the Quasi-Saint tribe and the Heavenly Human tribe had also finished their battle and killed the baleful Een monsters. Those who dared to come here to investigate were all top experts. There was no lack of peak Divine Master existences. It was naturally easy for them to deal with these ordinary Divine Master Realm baleful Een monsters. How dare you kill our baleful Een warriors? You're courting death. At this moment, a furious roar came from the pitch-black vortex. Then the vortex's fog churned. Accompanied by the roars of ferocious beasts, several figures appeared. These figures were thin and their bodies were like illusory green smoke, constantly twisting and turning. They sat on a few strange ferocious beasts, and looked outside with lightning eyes. This is Lu Ming, the Heavenly Human tribe, and the Quasi-Saint tribe were all shocked. These figures had clearly come out of the sewer. There were living creatures in the sewer? How could this be? Living creatures in the Forbidden Land. According to the ancient records, there are terrifying living creatures hibernating in the Forbidden Land. All of this is true. They are about to come out. At this moment, an elder from the Quasi-Saint tribe screamed and retreated. What do you mean? A heavenly human existence shouted. Chapter 4790. Kill. At this moment, a figure in the vortex shouted. His aura exploded, and waves of extreme Een energy burst out, causing the temperature of the starry sky to plummet. He rode a ferocious beast and rushed out of the vortex. Lu Ming finally saw the other party's appearance. Their bodies were illusory and not made of flesh and blood. They seemed to be souls, but they also seemed to be formed entirely by Een energy. They held spears in their hands and rode three-headed hounds. They emitted a terrifying aura. Swoosh! One of the creatures in the dark pit attacked. He thrust his spear, and the extreme Een energy whistled toward the Heavenly Human. Peak Divine Master. The moment the other party attacked, everyone sensed that his cultivation was at the peak of the Divine Master level. The Heavenly Human did not dare to be careless. A peak Divine Master quickly attacked, and the extreme power of heaven erupted. Boom! Their attacks collided, sending shockwaves everywhere. Then, the peak Divine Master of the Heavenly Human tribe was sent flying backward. His body was enveloped by a layer of dark Een energy, and his body was almost frozen. As for the creature in the pit, its body only swayed slightly. What powerful combat strength! Lu Ming was shocked. The combat strength of the creatures in the dark pit was astonishing. At the Divine Master level, the Heavenly Human race was extremely talented, and few races in the universe could compare to them. If one was not a monster, it would be difficult to fight against the Heavenly Human race. However, the powerful Heavenly Human race was completely at a disadvantage against the creatures in the dark pit. Could the creature in the dark pit be the prodigy of the other race? Or could any one of them have such powerful combat strength? If it was the latter, it would be terrifying. Boom! Boom! The other creatures in the dark pit also erupted with powerful auras, and they were ready to attack. Retreat! Retreat first. The Heavenly Human race and Quasi-Sage race all retreated. After all, this was the Dark Pit Demon Mountain. Who knew how many creatures there were in the Dark Pit? It was unwise to fight the creatures in the Dark Pit here. The people of the heavenly human tribe and the quasi-saint tribe retreated. Lu Ming moved and also retreated rapidly. He was just observing the situation. There was no need to fight with these creatures of unknown origin. Humph, if the time is right, none of them will leave. A creature in the dark pit snorted and did not chase after them. Instead, it turned around and returned to the dark vortex, disappearing. Lu Ming flew all the way, and soon left the area shrouded by the Yin energy. There's actually a living being in the dark pit. What is its origin? Logically speaking, this dark pit Devil Mountain should have been left behind from the previous era. However, the universe has undergone many eras, Lu Ming pondered. He had many questions. The universe's starry skies had experienced the changes of epochs. The universe had evolved, the heavens and earth had been reborn, and the universe's laws had been reborn. Could this dark crater demon mountain really be an item from the previous epoch? Had it been perfectly preserved after experiencing the universe's evolution? If it was true, then wouldn't the living beings in the dark pit demon mountain be living beings from the great desolate continent of the previous era? The living beings on the Eldritch continent had been passed down to this day? This was definitely big news. Lu Ming thought of the heavenly human race and the demons. The heavenly human race and the demons were living beings from the previous era. Furthermore, they were servants of the human race. They should not be of a high level. Since they could pass down the legacy, it was not impossible for other living beings to survive. This also explained why the other party was so powerful. They could suppress the heavenly human race in a battle of the same level. I wonder how many people there are. It's really an eventful time. Lu Ming sighed. The universe's situation was complicated enough. Now that there was a creature in the dark pit demon mountain, the situation would undoubtedly become more complicated. This made Lu Ming feel a sense of urgency. He was eager to improve his abilities. He felt that the future situation would become more and more complicated. Only with powerful strength could he protect himself. He quickly headed towards the Taishu dynasty. The Taishu dynasty was located in a remote area and was not affected by the dark pit demon mountain. Moreover, due to the lack of information, they didn't know what was happening in the universe. They continued to develop and cultivate steadily like before. Lu Ming's return to the Taishu dynasty naturally caused a sensation. However, Lu Ming couldn't be bothered to talk nonsense. He went straight to the point and told them about the situation in the universe. He also recorded the scene of the Yin energy shrouding the Taishu dynasty with the rest shadow stone, and showed it to the higher-ups of the Taishu dynasty. After the higher-ups of the Taishu dynasty saw it, they were naturally shocked. This kind of cosmic disaster was simply beyond their imagination. For a moment, they were all at a loss. In the end, they all pinned their hopes on Lu Ming. In their opinion, Lu Ming was the legend of the Taishu dynasty. Lu Ming also told them the purpose of his visit. Then, the Taishu dynasty immediately took action and gathered the creatures from all over. Not long after, Lu Ming began to take action. He used the Chaos Ring to collect a large number of creatures. This was a huge project. The Taishu dynasty had a vast territory and countless creatures. With Lu Ming's current cultivation, it took him more than half a year to collect a portion of the creatures of the Taishu dynasty into the Chaos Ring. Yes, only a portion. Although the Taishu dynasty was just a mediocre force and didn't have many experts, there were still countless creatures on all the planets. Lu Ming couldn't take them all away. Even if he took them all away, the Heaven Destroyer base wouldn't be able to accommodate them. He could only take away a portion of the more important ones. As for the other creatures, Lu Ming couldn't care so much. There were too many of them. He couldn't save them all even if he wanted to. With the creatures of the Taishu dynasty, Lu Ming returned to the Heaven Destroyer base, found a fragment of the continent, and released these creatures. Not long after Lu Ming returned, he received a message from Lion. Lu Ming went to Lion's residence. When he arrived, he found that Rong Jin, Tang Jian, and the others were also there. Lu Ming, you're here. I have something important to discuss with you, Lion said with a grin. What is it? Lu Ming asked curiously. It's about the Forbidden Area. Lion said. Forbidden Area? Do you already know that there are creatures in the Dark Pit Demon Mountain? Lu Ming couldn't help but ask. What? There are creatures in the dark pit Demon Mountain? Lion and the others' faces suddenly changed. You don't know? Lu Ming asked doubtfully. Lion, Rongjin, and the others shook their heads. It's like this. I happened to go to the dark pit Demon Mountain during this period of time. Immediately, Lu Ming told them what he saw in the dark pit Demon Mountain in detail. After listening, Lion, Rongjin, Tangjian, and the others' faces changed and became extremely solemn. There's actually such a thing. There are actually creatures in the pit. It's said that the dark pit Demon Mountain has existed for countless years. It has existed since the universe first appeared. Could it be a creature from the previous era? Tang Jian guessed. He and Lu Ming had the same thought. Chapter 4791. That's possible. After all, the dark pit Demon Mountain has existed since the primordial god appeared in the universe. It's just that no one dared to enter the dark pit. Anyone who entered died. Lion also said with a solemn expression. Although Lion had lived for countless years, and was older than many origins, he had never heard of living beings in the dark pit. If you don't know about the dark pit Demon Mountain, then what is the forbidden area you mentioned? Lu Ming asked curiously. It's the primordial divine mountain. Lion said. The primordial divine mountain? That terrifying forbidden area in the universe ruins? Lu Ming was shocked and could not help but blurt out. Lu Ming had naturally heard of the primordial divine mountain. Anyone who ventured into the universe ruins would be warned to stay away from the primordial divine mountain. That was because it was a terrifying forbidden area. Anyone who entered would die without exception. In the ruins of the universe or the universe, there were many places that were called forbidden zones. However, the truly terrifying forbidden zones were relatively rare. There was only one in the universe ruins, and that was the dark pit Demon Mountain. There were more forbidden areas in the universe ruins, and the primordial divine mountain was one of them. A forbidden ground like that was extremely terrifying. Let alone divine masters, even reciprocity realm existences would probably die if they entered it. The dark pit of the dark pit Demon Mountain was mysterious. No one knew what was inside. The greatest danger of the primordial divine mountain was the void beasts. That was because there were 4 terrifying void beasts residing in the primordial divine mountain. When Lu Ming had just stepped into the ruins of the universe, he had once encountered a void beast. It had chased after him until he had nowhere to run. In the end, he was lucky enough to encounter an ancient warship that was covered with strange black fog. That was how he managed to escape the calamity. As for the void beast, Lu Ming suspected that it was not a mature one because its size did not match the legends. Legend had it that the void beasts were even larger than stars. Mature spatial beasts were extremely terrifying. Even reciprocity experts would not be able to fend them off if they encountered them. The primordial divine mountain was guarded by 4 void beasts. It was undoubtedly a forbidden area among forbidden areas. In the past, no one dared to approach it. That's right. Recently, someone discovered that there are origin-grade divine herbs around the primordial divine mountain. Lion explained. Origin-level divine medicine. Lu Ming's eyes flashed. Source-grade divine medicine was very mysterious. Even Lu Ming had one. Source-grade divine herbs could condense medicine spirits like living creatures. As for top-notch source-grade divine medicines and medicine spirits could move about freely. Many people speculate that it should be an extremely top-level soul-level divine medicine. Divine medicines and medicine spirits can run around everywhere. That's why it was discovered around the fragment where the primal divine mountain is located. And there's more than one. There might be many soul-level divine medicines in the primal divine mountain. And there might even be other treasures with origin imprints. It might even contain a huge amount of chaos crystals. Tang Jian said. Lu Ming's eyes shone brightly. This was very likely. The primordial divine mountain actually had 4 void beasts guarding it. This place was definitely a very important place in the last epoch. No one had ever ventured deep into it. It would not be strange if it contained a huge amount of treasures. What Lu Ming needed the most right now was the Great Desolate Crystal. Or it could be a main-level divine medicine. Only these 2 things could allow his cultivation to break through quickly. And the primal divine mountain might have these 2 things. This made Lu Ming very interested. Will the void behemoths be affected by the origin tribulation? Lu Ming asked. That's what I'm going to say next. Although the void beasts are special, they can't withstand the origin tribulation. They can only withstand it a little more than ordinary existences at origin realm or above. But after so many years, they can't withstand it anymore. After many investigations, we've confirmed that the void beasts of the primal divine mountain have fallen into a deep slumber. They definitely won't wake up for several thousand years. Now all sides are preparing to send experts to explore the primal divine mountain. Heaven Destroyer is also preparing to send a team into the primal divine mountain. We want you to lead the team. What do you think? Lion said. Of course. Lu Ming nodded without hesitation. Heaven Destroyer was on the same boat as him. There was no reason not to help him. Moreover, most of the primal crystals obtained by Heaven Destroyer and the demons would be given to him first. He had even less reason to refuse. All right, then it's settled. We'll set off tomorrow. Lion said. Gu Changfeng had to stay at Heaven Destroyer's base and head to the primal divine mountain. With Lu Ming's help, their chances of success would be much higher. Lu Ming's battle prowess was obvious to all. In addition, Lu Ming had Qiu Qiu and Gu Mo, two of the strongest Lord of Heaven, with him. A day passed in the blink of an eye. On the second day, Lu Ming set off with his team. This time, Heaven Destroyer sent over 100 people to follow Lu Ming. These people were all experts. Even the weakest among them was at the 7th layer of the Divine Lord Realm. There were also 9 peak Divine Lord Realm experts. Coupled with Lu Ming, their battle prowess could be said to be very strong. They directly flew toward the Primal Divine Mountain. The Primal Divine Mountain was located relatively close to Heaven Destroyer's base. It was also relatively far from the Quasi-Saint tribe and the Heavenly Human tribe's territory. About 10 days later, they arrived at the periphery of the Primal Divine Mountain. The Primal Divine Mountain was actually located on a fragment of a continent. This fragment of a continent was very large, and was not smaller than the Thousand Autumn battlefield. In the center of this fragment of a continent, there was a continuous mountain range. It was incomparably huge, and could be seen from outside the fragment of the continent. The main reason was that this mountain range was emitting a dazzling light. This light was so dazzling that even Divine Lord Realm existence's vision would be greatly limited. They would not be able to see the exact appearance of the Primal Divine Mountain. They could only barely see an outline. As for what was on the Primal Divine Mountain, they could not see it clearly. Perhaps Origin Realm existences could see it clearly. However, Origin Realm existences did not dare to approach it at all. Once they did, they would be attacked by void beasts. Let's go! Lu Ming shouted. He took the lead and charged toward the fragment of the continent. The others followed. They were extremely alert. Their spiritual senses spread out in all directions as they constantly paid attention to their surroundings. Their speed was not very fast. After all, this was the Primal Divine Mountain, one of the most terrifying forbidden grounds in the universe. No one knew if there were any other dangers apart from void beasts. However, the situation was much better than they had imagined. They did not encounter any danger along the way. They did not encounter any living creatures either. Look, that's a divine herb, someone exclaimed. The others also saw it because the dense fragrance of the divine herb was just too alluring. In the forest ahead of them, there was a large patch of fiery red divine herbs growing. Everyone rushed over. They are all Emperor-grade divine herbs. There are thousands of them. Many people gasped in shock. Chapter 4792. It was not surprising that there were Emperor-level divine herbs. In the past, when the universe had not undergone great changes, even the universe could be born. However, it was very rare for thousands of Emperor-level divine herbs to grow in such a place. It was extremely shocking. It was indeed a forbidden land that had never been explored before. It was definitely extraordinary. Many people's eyes burned with passion. To be able to find so many Emperor-level divine herbs at once, this continent must contain main or even source-level divine herbs. Previously, someone had seen many source-level divine herbs running around. It should be true. Let's collect them first. When we return to the base, we will discuss the distribution. Lu Ming said. Everyone nodded, and then began to move. In a few moments, several thousand emperor-grade godly herbs were collected. Then they continued to move forward, and found a large number of divine herbs. Most of them were emperor-level and emperor-level divine herbs. However, their eyes lit up. When they went deeper into the continent fragment, there would definitely be main divine herbs. A day later, they were getting closer and closer to the primordial divine mountain. The dazzling light made it difficult for them to open their eyes. They had to constantly circulate divine power to their eyes to resist the dazzling light. At this moment, they finally discovered master-grade godly medicines. Moreover, there were 3 of them. This made them excited. The energy of a main divine herb was at least equivalent to the energy of 10,000 chaos crystals. The higher-level divine herbs had more energy. After traveling for a few more hours, they had already obtained more than 50 stalks of main-grade divine herbs. This was simply a treasure land. It contained endless treasures that could be picked up at will. That is, at this time, they saw a huge beast crawling on the ground in front of them. This beast was covered in scales. It was extremely huge. From afar, it looked like a planet on the ground. Void beast. Everyone looked at each other, and a word appeared in their hearts. That was right. This was definitely a void beast. Fortunately, the void beast was already asleep. It lay there with its eyes closed and did not move. The forest where the void beast is extremely rich in energy. It probably contains a lot of divine herbs. Someone said. They could feel that the forest where the void beast was too rich. It was even richer than the places they had been to before. They could imagine that it would definitely produce a large number of divine herbs. Let's go and take a look. Lu Ming spoke. He was very decisive as he headed in the direction of the void beast. The others looked at each other and followed suit. In any case, the void behemoth had already fallen into a deep slumber. But soon, they had no choice but to stop. That was because the void behemoth was emitting a terrifying aura. The closer they got to the void behemoth, the more terrifying the aura became. It was as if countless mountains were pressing down on them. It was also like sharp blades cutting into their bodies. They felt a stabbing pain. I can't. If I continue, my body will be torn apart. The face of a 7th-layer divine master expert was deathly pale. His entire body trembled, and blood seeped out of the corner of his mouth. Retreat! Lu Ming bellowed and quickly retreated with his men. The terror of the void beast was beyond his imagination. He had already fallen into a deep slumber, but his aura was still so terrifying that it could tear apart a divine master. Lu Ming had a feeling that even if it was him, he would not be able to get close to the void beast. Otherwise, his body and soul would be torn apart by that terrifying aura. This void beast was many times stronger than the one he had encountered before. It seemed that the void beast he had encountered before was not a mature one. If it was a mature one, Lu Ming would not have been able to escape. What is the origin of this void beast? It has been wandering the ruins of the universe since ancient times. Could it be some kind of creature left behind from the last era? Lu Ming pondered. He could not figure it out and felt a headache coming on. He had thought that once he reached the Divine Master realm and entered the ranks of the top experts of the universe, he would be able to understand the secrets of the universe. But now he realized that as his cultivation increased and his understanding of the universe increased, he had more and more questions. He realized that there were many more secrets in the universe than he had imagined. But many things seemed to point to the primeval continent of the last era. But that era was a missing piece of history, and there was too little information available. Maybe I'll have to find an opportunity to ask Zixian, Yin Kong and the others. Lu Ming muttered to himself. The fiend demons were creatures from the last era, so they might know a lot of secrets. They retreated and distanced themselves from the void beast. They went around this area and continued to head toward the primeval divine mountain. When they arrived there, they realized that the energy on this continent seemed to be coming from the primeval divine mountain. It came from the primeval divine mountain. The closer they were to the primeval divine mountain, the more energy there was. Therefore, the closer they were to the primeval divine mountain, the more advanced the divine medicines were. So, as the source of energy, how many treasures would there be on the primeval divine mountain? It was probably unimaginable. Thinking of this, many people's breathing became heavy. After a while they finally got close to the primeval divine mountain. When they got closer, they finally saw the outline of the primeval divine mountain. It was a mountain range with endless peaks. There were at least dozens of huge mountains, and they were extremely majestic. The mountain range was lush and full of vitality. There were countless flowers and trees growing on it. Suddenly, a small sapling appeared on the ground in front of them. The sapling was less than a meter tall. There were 6 golden fruits growing on it. Each fruit was only the size of a fist. They swayed on the ground and gave off a dense fragrance. Above the sapling was an even smaller sapling. It was formed from energy and it was running back and forth. An origin divine medicine. Everyone's eyes immediately burned with desire. This really was an origin divine medicine. Moreover, it was definitely of a very high grade among origin divine medicines. This was because the other party was running. For example, the origin divine medicines Lu Ming had obtained before were rooted in a certain place and would not run. However, this one had clearly just emerged from the ground. The origin divine medicine seemed to have discovered Lu Ming's group. It turned around and ran madly into the depths of the primeval divine mountain. After it, this origin divine medicine is priceless. It can help people reach reciprocity. Many people's eyes burned with desire. Unable to suppress their greed, they chased after the origin divine medicine. Even Lu Ming chased after the source-level elixir. However, the origin divine medicine was extremely fast. It was like a bolt of lightning. Lu Ming's group could not catch up for a while. Instead, the distance between them widened. After a while, they lost track of the origin divine medicine. Damn it. Many people were very unwilling. That's the heavenly human race. Suddenly, they saw a group of people flying over from another direction. They were the experts of the heavenly human race. Chapter 4793. In another direction, a group of heavenly human tribe members rushed over. There were about 100 of them. Soon, the heavenly human tribe members arrived. The Heaven Destroyer members were on full alert, ready for a big battle. Apparently, the heavenly human tribe members had also noticed Lu Ming and the others. They stopped at a distance. 100 Battle Ju Tian, they're all familiar faces. Lu Ming's eyes flashed. The 2 leaders of the heavenly human tribe were 2 of the foremost powerful Lord of Heaven, the Lord of Heaven of 100 Battles and the Lord of Heaven of Annihilation. In addition, there were 2 burly figures beside them. They were 2 modified primitive divine spirit puppets. When they attacked the Heaven Destroyer base, there were a total of 4 primitive divine spirit puppets. They were the products of the heavenly human tribe's endless experiments. They were filled with all kinds of terrifying power, and their combat power was also at the level of the most powerful Lord of Heaven. Their bodies were extremely huge before, but now they had shrunk and were only a little bigger than an ordinary person. Lu Ming, the Lord of Heaven of 100 Battles, and the Lord of Heaven of Absolute Heaven also noticed Lu Ming. Their pupils shrank rapidly, and they were frightened. They instinctively wanted to retreat. The battle at the Heaven Destroyer base had a great impact on them. Lu Ming's terrifying combat power had been deeply imprinted in their hearts. The 2 most powerful Lord of Heaven of 100 Battles were the same, and the other members of the heavenly human tribe were even more so. They felt cold all over and their faces were pale. Even if there were 4 most powerful Lord of Heaven in front of them, they couldn't help but feel afraid. In the battle at the Heaven Destroyer base, 5 most powerful Lord of Heaven of 100 Battles had besieged Lu Ming at the beginning. What had happened to them in the end? Don't be afraid, everyone. The ancestral patriarch speculated that Lu Ming's combat power was most likely due to some kind of treasure or secret technique that could cause great damage. There might be a huge sequela, so he can't keep using it. At this moment, the Extermination Lord of Heaven shouted loudly to stabilize the morale of the army. After the initial panic, his heart also calmed down. After the battle at the Heaven Destroyer station, Ye Immortal speculated that it was impossible for Lu Ming to maintain such a powerful state forever. This could be seen from the fact that the Heaven Destroyer didn't launch a counterattack against the heavenly human tribe. If Lu Ming was really that powerful, together with Gu Changfeng, they would be able to fight back, but Heaven Destroyer didn't do anything, which meant a lot. Of course, this was all just speculation. Even the Yi Immortal couldn't be sure. Therefore, they didn't dare to continue attacking the Heaven Destroyer because they didn't know Lu Ming's exact combat strength. Even so, the people of the Heavenly Human Tribe were still deeply afraid of Lu Ming. They still distanced themselves from Lu Ming and the others. However, Lu Ming and the others did not attack. It wasn't that Lu Ming didn't want to, but that he really didn't have the strength to do so. In total, the other party had the combat strength of 4 Lord of Heaven. As for Lu Ming, he had Bone Demon and Wuxia with him. He only had the combat power of the 3 strongest Heaven Lords. In particular, the 2 primitive divine spirit puppets didn't have any intelligence. Wuxia's illusory light beam was ineffective against such puppets, which made them even more difficult to deal with. For a moment, the 2 sides were in a stalemate. He didn't make a move. Could it be that Lu Ming really can't unleash that kind of combat strength? The Extermination Lord of Heaven and the Lord of Heaven of 100 Battles looked at each other and said the same thing in their hearts. Of course, they didn't dare to risk their lives to try it. They just muttered in their hearts and were still very wary of Lu Ming. It's really lively. Did you guys get the source-level divine medicine? A deep voice sounded, and another group of people arrived. It was the Quasi-Saint tribe. There were about 100 people in the Quasi-Saint tribe. Most of them were middle-aged men or old men, but their auras were extremely deep and vigorous. Especially the few people in the lead. Although their cultivation seemed to be at the peak of the Divine Master realm, they gave off an extremely strong pressure. Even Lu Ming felt a strong pressure, similar to the pressure given by the Extermination Lord of Heaven. Could it be that these people have the combat strength of the Lord of Heaven? Lu Ming's heart stirred. Lu Ming had never dared to underestimate the Quasi-Saint tribe. All along, the Quasi-Saint tribe had been mysterious and unfathomable. It wouldn't be strange if a few of them had the combat strength of the Lord of Heaven. You are Lu Ming. The Quasi-Saint tribe's people swept their gazes over the Heaven Destroyer and the Heavenly Human tribe before finally landing on Lu Ming. Their expressions immediately became very grave. Lu Ming had killed 3 of the Heavenly Human tribe's strongest powerhouses of the Lord of Heaven. This news had long spread throughout the universe. How could the Quasi-Saint tribe not have heard of it? After seeing Lu Ming, they immediately became vigilant. Everyone, we've just tracked down a stock of source-grade divine herb. Did you guys obtain it? A man from the Quasi-Saint tribe asked loudly. No, we also followed a divine medicine and came here not long ago. Lu Ming said. It's the same for us. We were just following a soul-grade divine herb and arrived here. When we arrived, the Heaven Exterminating Army was already here. The Lord of Heaven of Annihilation followed with a crafty glint in his eyes. What he meant was that they had arrived later. When they arrived, the Heavenly Extermination Troop had already arrived. As for whether the source-grade divine medicine that the Quasi-Saint tribe was tracking had fallen into the hands of the Heavenly Extermination Troop, they didn't know. Haha, you don't have to sow discord here. I believe that everyone from the Quasi-Saint tribe has their own judgment. Lu Ming sneered in response. The burly man leading the group from the Quasi-Saint race rolled his eyes and said, In that case, both of you are chasing after a source-grade divine herb. May I ask, what does the source-grade divine herb look like? There was nothing to hide. Lu Ming and the Lord of Heaven of Annihilation said it separately. The Lord of Heaven of Annihilation usually appeared on the Heavenly Human tribe's side. This was because the Lord of Heaven of 100 Battles wasn't good with words and schemes, while the Lord of Heaven of Annihilation was better at it. According to what you said, there are at least 3 extremely high-grade source-level divine medicines in this area? The eyes of the Quasi-Saint tribe's leader lit up. Lu Ming's eyes also flickered, and the others were even more fervent. This kind of source-level divine medicine that could run was of an extremely high grade, and had astonishing effects. Even origin realm existences would fight over it with their lives. Moreover, it had a miraculous effect on peak divine master existences. It could greatly increase the success rate of breaking through to the origin realm. Such a treasure was simply a priceless treasure. In the ruins of the universe, this kind of source-level divine medicine was extremely rare. And now they saw 3 of them all at once. It would be strange if they weren't excited. 3 source-level divine medicines have disappeared in this area. There must be something strange about this area, the Quasi-Saint tribe's leader said. That's right, I think so too. Why don't the 3 of us search separately? It will belong to whoever finds it. How about it? The Lord of Heaven of Annihilation said. Good, I have the same idea, the Quasi-Saint tribe's leader said. Then they all looked at Lu Ming. At the scene, they were most afraid of Lu Ming. Chapter 4794. The Heavenly Human Tribe and the Quasi-Sage Tribe were most concerned about Lu Ming. If Lu Ming disagreed, they would have no choice but to join forces to deal with Lu Ming. Of course, I have no objections. Lu Ming smiled faintly. Okay, then let's split up and search. The man from the Quasi-Sage Tribe nodded. Then, the 3 parties split up and each chose a direction to search. Strange, there are no divine herbs of other levels in this area. An elder from the Heaven Destroyer said. Lu Ming also frowned. This area was already inside the Prime Divine Mountain, so the energy was shockingly rich. Such rich energy should be able to nurture more divine herbs. However, they didn't find any divine herbs. Not to mention the main divine herbs, they didn't even find any low-level divine herbs. There are several extremely high-grade source-grade divine herbs in this area. They're probably affected by the source-grade divine herbs. Those divine herbs are too domineering. They've absorbed all the energy here, making it impossible for other divine herbs to survive. Bone Demon's voice sounded in his sea of consciousness. Lu Ming nodded, agreeing with this statement. Half a day later, they still found nothing. Boom. At this moment, a violent explosion suddenly came from another direction, and at the same time, dazzling rays of light filled the air. The rocks of the Prime Divine Mountain were originally filled with dazzling rays of light, but this ray of light was even more dazzling. It could be seen even from far away. That's the direction the Heavenly Human Tribe is searching. Did they find something? Maybe the source-level divine herbs are there. The people from the Heaven Destroyer discussed animatedly. Let's go and take a look. Lu Ming took the lead and rushed in that direction. They flew at full speed and soon approached the place where the rays of light filled the air. It was a cliff. At this moment, the cliff actually split into 2 from the middle, and a huge canyon appeared out of thin air. The dazzling rays of light burst out from the canyon. That's source-level divine herbs. And there are 3 of them, no 4 of them, no 5 of them. Many people exclaimed. Lu Ming's heart was also shaken, and his eyes were burning. Indeed, he saw 5 stalks of origin-grade divine herbs. They were all different from one another. The 5 stalks of divine medicine were extremely fast. With a flash of light, they disappeared into the canyon. Swoosh, 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 with a flicker, the people of the Quasi-Saint race also arrived. We discovered this place first. We agreed that whoever discovered the soul-grade divine herb would get to keep it. You can leave now. The Extermination Lord of Heaven shouted and stared vigilantly at the Quasi-Saint race and Heaven Destroyer. Those who see it have a share. Moreover, 5 stalks of extremely high-level origin-level divine medicines. Can your celestial race really swallow them all? Aren't you afraid of choking to death? The burly man from the Quasi-Saint race sneered. His eyes were full of mockery. He was not afraid of the celestial race at all. Lu Ming remained silent. Asking them to leave was too naive. Previously, when he said that it would belong to whoever found it, that was just a casual remark. No one would take it seriously. He believed that if Lu Ming and the others had found the source-level divine herb first, the Heavenly Human Tribe would not have given up. Damn it! The people of the celestial race shouted angrily in their hearts. In the past, their celestial race was high and mighty, and no other race dared to disobey them. In the past 1,000 years it had completely changed. The prestige of the celestial race was getting lower and lower. For example, the Quasi-Saint race did not put the celestial race in their eyes at all. Follow me into the canyon. The Extermination Lord of Heaven shouted angrily, and took the lead to rush into the canyon. More than 100 experts of the celestial race followed closely behind. Let's go. Enter the canyon. The Quasi-Saint race and Heaven Destroyer immediately rushed in. However, after the experts of the 3 sides entered the canyon, they couldn't help but stop. The canyon was very wide, and the stone walls on both sides of the canyon were as smooth as a mirror, as if they had been cut by a sharp blade. What moved them the most was that there were crystal statues on the stone arms. No, they were not crystal statues, but pieces of crystals. Inside the crystals, there were living beings sealed. They were like crystal coffins. The stone arms were sunken in and embedded with pieces of crystals. There were living beings sealed in them. These living beings had their eyes closed and their faces were serene. The most important thing was that the appearance of these living beings was very strange. They looked similar to the human race, but their hair was very different from that of the human race. The hair of these living beings was not like that of the human race, which had tens of thousands of strands. They only had thousands of strands of hair, and each strand of hair was much thicker than that of the human race. Moreover, their hair looked like beams of light, flowing with multicolored light. It was incomparably strange. What race is this? Everyone revealed a curious look, because in the universe, they had never heard of such a race. No one knew. The canyon continued to extend forward. No one knew how long it was. On the stone arms on both sides of the canyon, there were many living beings sealed in these crystals. At a glance, there were no less than thousands of them. Crack! At this moment, some of the crystals actually emitted cracking sounds and cracks appeared. Everyone's heart skipped a beat. Why did these crystals crack? There's also a crystal crack here. There's also one in this direction. Many people spoke nervously. In fact, there were not many crystals that cracked. There were only a dozen of them. More and more cracks appeared on these crystals. In the end, the crystals fell off one by one, and the living beings inside the crystals were completely exposed in front of everyone. Swish! Suddenly, one of the creatures in the crystal suddenly opened his eyes. His eyes shone with a resplendent light. At the same time, his long hair, which was like a beam of light, began to dance wildly. Then, like a sharp sword, it pierced towards the creature closest to him. The living beings closest to him were from the heavenly human race. Poof! Poof! Two of the heavenly human race were caught off guard and were directly hit. The light beam of hair pierced through their bodies, and hundreds of holes appeared on their bodies. Then, with a flick of the hair, the two heavenly human race experts' bodies were torn into pieces. The two heavenly human race experts' cultivation levels were not weak. Their cultivation levels were at the 8th level of the Divine Master Realm, but they could not resist at all. How dare you trespass into the territory of my race? Kill without mercy! That strange living being shouted. His voice was dry and stiff as if he had not spoken for countless years. However, everyone could hear that it was filled with killing intent. Swish! His body rushed out and charged toward the heavenly human race experts. All of you back off. Leave this person to me. A 9th-level Divine Master Realm expert of the heavenly human race stepped forward. The golden spear in his hand stabbed out hundreds of times in an instant. That strange living being continued to attack with his light beam of hair. It was like thousands of sharp swords piercing toward the heavenly human race experts. Clang! 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 Both sides collided thousands of times in an instant. Then a figure rapidly retreated. It was the heavenly human race expert. He vomited large mouthfuls of blood, and several bloody holes appeared on his body. His eyes were filled with shock. What powerful combat strength! The others were shocked. Chapter 4795. Everyone was shocked. They could sense that the creature that came out of the crystal was also a 9th-level Divine Master, the same level as the heavenly human. However, the heavenly human was completely defeated. This creature's combat strength was astonishing. It completely suppressed the heavenly human. Lu Ming couldn't help but think of the creature in the dark pit demon mountain. It completely suppressed the heavenly human. Similarly, they came from the most terrifying forbidden land. Kill! The being sealed in the crystal coldly bellowed, his killing intent chilling. Thousands of strands of hair danced in the air like thousands of sharp swords as they continued to attack the human 9th heaven Divine Lord, wanting to kill him completely. The other heavenly human naturally wouldn't let it do as it wished. On the side, a peaked Divine Master from the heavenly human race stepped forward, holding the heavenly sword in his hand. He slashed out a dense sword light, blocking the other party's sword-like hair, and pushing it back. However, the crystal-like creature's killing intent became even stronger. It roared and continued to attack the peak divine master from the heavenly human race. The two were extremely fast and exchanged dozens of blows in an instant. Although the creature in the crystal seal was at a complete disadvantage, it was difficult for the peak divine master from the heavenly human race to kill it. Crack. Asterisk crack. Asterisk at this time, the other crystals had also shattered. The creatures inside all opened their eyes, and the light strands on their heads danced wildly. Then these creatures charged toward the heavenly human race, the quasi-saint race, and the heaven destroyer. The hair pierced through the void like swords, making ear-piercing whistling sounds as it pierced toward the experts of the three forces. The terrifying power made everyone's expression change. There were definitely terrifying experts among them. The top experts of the three forces were the first to attack. For example, the exterminating Lord of Heaven of the heavenly human race, the Lord of Heaven of the 100 Battles, the leader of the quasi-saint race, Lu Ming of the Heaven Destroyer, and the Bone Demon. Lu Ming swept out with the War God Spear, and a spear light instantly enveloped the 5 creatures sealed in the crystal seal. The spear light collided with the thousands of strands of hair. How strong was Lu Ming? Even though the creatures sealed in the crystals were very strong, there was still a big gap between them and Lu Ming. The light beam like hair was swept by the spear light and trembled violently. Some of them even exploded. Several miserable cries sounded. 2 of the weaker creatures' bodies exploded, dying on the spot. The other 3 were also coughing up blood. Their light beam like hair had dimmed. The strongest existences at the level of the Lord of Heaven were too strong. They crushed their opponents as soon as they made a move. On the other side, the celestial race and the quasi-sage race were about the same. The strongest Lord of Heaven-level experts defeated their opponents as soon as they made a move. Some of the weaker ones were killed immediately. Retreat. The remaining creatures sealed in the crystal were very decisive. Their bodies were like lightning as they charged into the depths of the canyon. However, their eyes were extremely cold and filled with cold-killing intent. Chase after them. The soul-grade divine medicine is most likely in the depths of the canyon. The Lord of Heaven of 100 Battles shouted, and took the lead to chase. The people of the celestial race quickly followed. The people of the quasi-sage race also quickly followed. Lu Ming, what should we do? Someone in the Heaven Destroyer asked Lu Ming. The Heaven Destroyer at the scene naturally followed Lu Ming's lead. Lu Ming frowned slightly. He had a bad premonition, mainly because he thought of the Dark Pit Demon Mountain. It was also the most terrifying forbidden area, but there were strange creatures. This was no small matter. In addition, there were many crystals here, and each crystal sealed a living being. Since some of the living beings were still alive, what about the other living beings? However, since they had come here, they were unwilling to give up just like that. Let's go in and take a look. If the situation is not right, retreat immediately. Lu Ming instructed. Then Lu Ming took the lead and rushed into the depths of the canyon. However, the deeper they went into the canyon, the more serious the expressions of Lu Ming and the others became. Because the stone arms on both sides of the canyon were inlaid with that kind of crystal. Along the way, they had already seen tens of thousands of them. At this time, the speed of the people of the celestial race and quasi-sage race was also getting slower and slower. Because their hearts were also heavy, and they were also a little scared. Suddenly everyone stopped. Because in front of the canyon, the creatures sealed in the crystal appeared again. It was still the same ones who had escaped before, but at this time, they were not afraid at all and blocked in front of everyone. How dare you kill my people? Die. One of the creatures sealed in the crystal said coldly. Then more than a dozen creatures sealed in the crystal appeared behind them. These creatures had long hair fluttering in the wind, and their bodies seemed to be transparent, emitting a dazzling light. Swoosh, 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 their bodies shot out explosively toward the crowd. The light beams pierced through the void and pierced toward the quasi-sage race and the celestial race at an astonishing speed, and even the Heaven Destroyer. Among them, there were a few whose attack speed was too fast. It was so fast that it was almost impossible for people to react. Continuous screams were heard. People from the celestial race, quasi-sage race, and Heaven Destroyer were all killed. At least a dozen people died in an instant. The Heaven Destroyer's situation was slightly better. They were the least killed because they were at the back. Damn it! The Lord of Heaven of 100 Battles shouted angrily and attacked those creatures with all his strength, but he was blocked by a creature sealed in the crystal. In an instant, the two of them exchanged more than 100 moves, but there was no winner. An expert on the level of the strongest Lord of Heaven. Everyone's heart trembled. Among these creatures, there was actually an existence on the level of the strongest Lord of Heaven. This was a little terrifying. Previously, many people were not afraid because they had an existence on the level of the strongest Lord of Heaven by their side. In the era where origin energy did not appear, they were almost invincible. Even if the other party's origin was mysterious, they were not afraid. But now they were a little scared because the other party also had an expert on the level of the strongest. In fact, there was not only one expert on the level of the strongest, but 3. There was also one expert on the quasi-sage race's side. Lu Ming's side was also attacked by an expert on the level of the strongest. However, before Lu Ming could make a move, Bone Demon had already charged out and clashed with the other party. The dozen or so creatures sealed in the crystals that had appeared later were all top-notch experts. Aside from the 3 who possessed the battle prowess of the strongest Heaven Lord, the other dozen or so were all at the peak of the Divine Master realm. However, these creatures were too strong. Although they were all peak Divine Masters, their fighting strength completely suppressed the celestial race. Even if the strongest Lord of Heaven wanted to kill them, it would not be that easy. Therefore, the threat of more than 10 peak Divine Masters was still very big. Bang! Lu Ming's spear struck a mysterious creature at the peak of the almighty level. The other party's body exploded with a loud bang. However, it did not die. Instead, it turned into rays of light and retreated a distance before it gathered together again. What a powerful soul! Lu Ming's eyes narrowed slightly. Chapter 4796. If a living being in the primitive universe was hit by Lu Ming's spear, the violent power would definitely tear their body and soul apart. However, although the body of the living being sealed in the crystal was shattered by Lu Ming, its soul was not completely torn apart. It was preserved and quickly retreated to reform its body. Of course, it was impossible for the other party to be completely unharmed. No matter how strong its soul was, it had suffered a great deal of damage from the previous attack. The light on its hair and body dimmed, and its aura was much weaker. Although the living beings sealed in the crystal were very strong, there were too few of them. On the other hand, the heavenly human race, the quasi-saint race, and the Heaven Destroyer had a total of more than 400 people. Even if the strongest Lord of Heaven was a few times stronger, there were still close to 10 of them. Therefore, when the two sides exchanged blows, the living beings sealed in the crystal were completely defeated and retreated one after another. At this moment in the depths of the canyon, there was a violent sound of something breaking through the air. More living beings sealed in the crystal had arrived. At the same time, behind Lu Ming's group, there were also dozens of living beings sealed in the crystal. Crack, crack. On the stone walls on both sides, there were continuous cracking sounds. Cracks appeared on many crystals, and the crystals began to explode. This was shocking. Could it be that the living beings sealed in the crystal were all alive? If so, how many living beings were sealed in the crystal on both sides of the canyon? How many were there in the depths of the canyon? Most importantly, they had only explored one area of the primordial holy mountain. Were there any more living beings in the other areas? If more living beings with the strength of the strongest Lord of Heaven appeared, all 3 sides would be in danger. Moreover, no one could guarantee that there would not be more living beings with the strength of the strongest Lord of Heaven. After all, living beings were mysterious and unfathomable. They were completely unknown to everyone. It was not impossible for any kind of living beings to appear. If a living being with the strength of Gu Changfeng appeared, few of them would be able to escape. Retreat. Lu Ming made a prompt decision. He shouted and quickly retreated with Heaven Destroyer's men. If he was alone, it would be better with Bone Demon and Qiuqiu's help. However, since he was leading a team this time, he had to be responsible for the 100 or so people under him. Lu Ming took the lead and joined forces with Qiuqiu to launch a fierce attack. All kinds of attacks poured out toward the dozens of creatures sealed in the crystal. Fortunately, although there were 5 or 6 peak divine masters among the several dozen crystal creatures behind them, none of them had battle prowess at the level of the Lord of Heaven. Lu Ming and Qiuqiu's combined attacks immediately opened up a path. Heaven Destroyer's men took the opportunity to charge out, while Bone Demon was in charge of bringing up the rear. After fighting for a while, the people of Heaven Destroyer successfully broke out of the encirclement and quickly rushed out of the canyon. Damn it! The people of Heavenly Human Tribe and Quasi-Sage Tribe roared in their hearts. They were very unwilling to accept this. However, Heaven Destroyer's men left first. Without Heaven Destroyer's restraint, the creatures sealed in the crystal rushed toward them, causing the pressure on them to increase sharply. Moreover, many crystals around them were constantly cracking. If this continued, it would be very dangerous. No matter how unwilling they were, they could only retreat first. Retreat! Retreat! The people of Heavenly Human Tribe and Quasi-Sage Tribe shouted, and rushed toward the exit of the canyon. After paying a price, they finally broke out of the encirclement and quickly rushed toward the exit. Soon, the two tribes successfully rushed out of the canyon. They didn't dare to stay and rushed outside. The creatures sealed in the crystal chased them to the entrance of the canyon and stopped. It won't be long before my tribe reappears in the world. At that time, the void universe of the untainted land will be my tribe's world. A cold voice reverberated at the entrance of the canyon. In the distance, Lu Ming and the others also heard this voice. Void universe of the untainted land? What does that mean? Also, what kind of tribe are these? They're so terrifying. Why are they hiding in this terrifying forbidden area? Why didn't the void beasts attack them? Many people were discussing spiritedly. They had a lot of questions that couldn't be answered. Perhaps the 4 void beasts are there to protect these creatures? Someone said, but his voice was trembling. Many people's hearts trembled. If it was true, it would be shocking. What was the origin of these creatures? Lu Ming also frowned. He had a lot of doubts in his heart. He asked Bone Demon, but Bone Demon was also puzzled because this was also beyond his scope of understanding. Because after the beginning of the new era, no creatures had appeared in these terrifying forbidden areas. Could it be that they were really the terrifying creatures of the untainted land of the previous era, who had sealed themselves until now? Let's go back first, Lu Ming said. This place was not suitable to stay for long. It gave people a sense of crisis. They flew toward the outside of the continent. Not long after, they completely left this continent and rushed toward the Heaven Destroyer's encampment. This trip, except for a few divine herbs, was a wasted trip. To be honest, Lu Ming was a little disappointed. He had hoped to get enough primordial crystals this time to improve his cultivation. It seemed that he wouldn't be so lucky every time. Not long after, they returned to the Heaven Destroyer's encampment. Lu Ming told Lion, Rongjin, and the others in detail what he saw and heard at the primordial divine mountain. After hearing this, the upper echelons of the Heaven Destroyer were also stunned. Things were beyond their expectations. At the same time, the upper echelons of the Heaven Destroyer ordered that the primordial divine mountain be listed as a forbidden area again. The people of the Heaven Destroyer were not allowed to get close. Let's ask Zixian and the others. Lu Ming planned to ask Zixian and the others. A few days later, Lu Ming arrived at the demon's territory. Now, the 4 demon royal families had put aside their past grievances and joined forces to develop. They knew very well that after many battles during this period, the demons had suffered heavy losses. If they didn't join forces, they would definitely be wiped out by the heavenly human race. Only by joining forces could they protect themselves. The demons' current encampment was in the Yinshu Demon Castle. Lu Ming met Zixian, Yin Kong, Jiao Du, and the others in the Yinshu Demon Castle. Lu Ming told them what he saw at the Yinshu Demon Mountain and the Primordial Divine Mountain. After hearing this, Zixian, Yin Kong, Jiao Du, and the others looked at each other with serious expressions. Never would I have thought. I truly never would have thought that the rumors were true. There are actually terrifying creatures living in these forbidden areas. Zixian muttered to herself, her eyes full of surprise. Zixian, do you know about these forbidden areas? Lu Ming asked hurriedly. There are some records in some of the oldest books of the demons. It is said that these forbidden areas already existed in the primeval age of the last era. Zixian said. What? They already existed in the last era? Lu Ming was shocked. Chapter 4797. That's right. According to the ancient records, these forbidden grounds existed in the primeval continent of the last epoch. Moreover, they were still forbidden grounds in the primeval continent. They were extremely dangerous, and anyone who entered would die. Even the Almighty of the primeval continent would be in great danger if they entered. They could die at any time. According to the ancient records, many almighty beings died in the forbidden grounds during the primeval continent. There were even transcendents among them. Zixian explained. Ying Kong, Jiao Du, and the others nodded. Their faces were extremely solemn. Lu Ming felt a chill in his heart. This had exceeded his expectations. These forbidden grounds had existed for far longer than he had imagined. They were actually terrifying forbidden grounds in the primeval continent of the last epoch. In fact, even transcendents would perish if they entered. This was too terrifying. Transcendents were called immortals. They were above the universe. The universe could be destroyed, but they could not be destroyed. They were extremely powerful and unparalleled. Compared to transcendents, origin realm experts were like fireflies compared to the moon. This was because there was a transitional realm between origin realm and transcendence. This realm was filled with trials and tribulations. Only by overcoming these trials could one reach transcendence. Even such terrifying experts would die in there. This was how dangerous these forbidden grounds were. Lu Ming could not help but feel lucky. He was really lucky to be completely fine when he entered the primeval divine mountain last time. Or perhaps, these forbidden grounds had changed in the new epoch and were no longer as dangerous as before? What are the origins of these creatures in the forbidden grounds? Are some powerful races from the primeval continent living there? Lu Ming asked. I'm not too sure. The ancient records of my race are very limited. Zixian shook her head. After all, it's been far too long. Many ancient records have been lost. Moreover, the ancestors of my race also participated in the war at the end of the primeval continent and died in the end. There are too many records that have been lost. There are only a few words about these forbidden grounds. There aren't too many details. Ying Kong added. Lu Ming was slightly disappointed. He originally thought that he could learn more about the creatures in the forbidden grounds from the demons. This doesn't seem right. There was a great war at the end of the last epoch. The primeval continent collapsed and formed a destructive force. Didn't they say that even transcendents died? How could these forbidden grounds be preserved? Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. He had the same question and asked. Legend had it that the destructive force formed from the collapse of the primeval continent swept across the entire universe. The peak experts of the primeval continent died. Then why were these forbidden grounds preserved? Could it be that these forbidden grounds were even more stable and powerful than the top experts of the desolate continent? There are exceptions to everything. Of the heavenly human race, Zixian said. Of the transcendents. To the transcendents. Or they? Those peak experts transcendents. Or transcendents. Just, eh? Zixian paused for a moment before continuing. Lu Ming's heart trembled. Indeed. It was just a guess. There was no real evidence to prove that the peak experts of the primeval continent were all dead. However, after that battle, those top experts from the previous era had all disappeared without a trace. Later generations believed that they had most likely perished together when the prehistoric continent collapsed. However, if those forbidden grounds could be preserved, the peak experts of the primeval continent and the transcendents might have survived. Lu Ming, in short, those forbidden lands are too scary. Don't provoke the living creatures in those forbidden lands. Try not to provoke them. Zixian warned with a serious face. If they don't provoke me, I won't provoke them. But I'm afraid, Lu Ming said. He paused, but everyone knew what he meant. Sometimes even if you don't provoke others, they will provoke you. Indeed, Zixian, Ying Kong, Jiao Du and the others sighed. Their faces were a little pale. The creatures of the forbidden grounds appeared suddenly. They must have bad intentions. Yin Kong said. Indeed, we have to be prepared. However, according to Lu Ming, it seems that only a small number of the living creatures in the Forbidden Land can move about. I speculate that these living creatures are not living creatures of the present. Instead, they have been preserved from the distant past. They should have used some special means to seal themselves. There are some conditions to unseal them. Zixian said. Zixian, Yin Kong, Jiao Du and the others were all smart people who could lead the royal families during the Origin Tribulation. They could speculate a lot with just a little information. Lu Ming nodded. Zixian and the other speculations were the same as Lu Ming's. In the extreme Yuan Forbidden Ground, there were many creatures sealed in the crystals, but only a few of them were unsealed. The rest were still sleeping in the crystals. Even if they escaped, the other party did not chase after them. Also, there were only a few creatures in the Dark Pit Demon Mountain. After they retreated, the other party did not chase after them. From these aspects, the other party should not have many people now. Perhaps there were some conditions to be met if they wanted to unseal the crystals. Lu Ming discussed with Zixian and the others for a while before leaving. After returning to the Heaven Destroyer Station, he discussed with Lion and the others for a while. After knowing that Lu Ming had obtained the information from the demons, Lion and the others were more cautious. They evacuated the people around the extreme Yuan Forbidden Ground and gave up the territory around the extreme Yuan Sacred Ground. The Heavenly Human Tribe and the Quasi-Immortal Tribe also seemed to be very cautious about these forbidden grounds. In the following days, their people also stayed away from these forbidden grounds and did not dare to approach. In this way, the universe ushered in a short period of peace. The various forces did not fight. Time flew by and hundreds of years passed. At this time, 1,500 years had passed since the Origin Tribulation began. After hundreds of years, the dark yin qi that filled the Dark Pit Demon Mountain became wider and wider. Finally, it enveloped the entire universe. From then on, the universe was completely reduced to a world full of dark yin qi. The creatures in the universe either fled to the ruins of the universe or became dark yin qi monsters. Not long after the dark yin qi enveloped the universe, a series of beast roars came from the Dark Pit Demon Mountain. An army rushed out of the pit. All of them were creatures of the Dark Pit Demon Mountain. There were about 2,000 of them. They led a large number of dark yin qi monsters to invade the ruins of the universe. The invasion of the creatures of the extreme Yuan Forbidden Ground into the ruins of the universe caused the entire universe to shake. All the forces were nervously watching. And the closest to the universe was the Heavenly Palace controlled by the Heavenly Human Tribe. Chapter 4798. The Heavenly Palace was the first to bear the brunt of the attack from the creatures of the Dark Pit Demon Mountain. However, the Heavenly Palace didn't send experts to attack the creatures of the Dark Pit Demon Mountain. Instead, they retreated and gave up on a large territory they had already occupied. They withdrew their forces and focused on defending a portion of the important territory. This was enough to prove that the celestial race was really afraid of the creatures of the Forbidden Lands and didn't dare to confront them. However, the creatures of the Forbidden Lands were seriously understaffed. There were only about 2,000 of them, which was really a drop in the ocean in the vast universe ruins. Therefore, after the creatures of the Forbidden Lands occupied a region, they didn't continue to attack the Heavenly Palace. Instead, they focused on developing the territory they had already occupied. According to the investigation, these creatures of the Forbidden Lands seemed to be plundering resources. All kinds of resources, all kinds of natural treasures, were their targets of plundering. Just as the creatures of the Dark Pit Demon Mountain came out, a major change also occurred on the other side of the universe ruins. In the depths of the universe ruins, this area was occupied by the quasi-saint race. There was also a terrifying Forbidden Lands in this area called Sangfusi. In this Forbidden Lands, a kind of strange creatures actually came out. They were very powerful and there were about 3,000 of them. As soon as they appeared, they attacked several important continent fragments of the quasi-saint race. The quasi-saint race and the celestial race's methods were almost the same. They didn't dare to confront the creatures of the Tsangfusi and directly gave up a large territory. They withdrew their forces and focused on defending a portion of the region with the quasi-saint race's headquarters as the core. The creatures of the Zhongfu Sea also did the same thing as the creatures of the Dark Pit Demon Mountain. They didn't have enough manpower. After occupying a territory, they didn't continue to attack and instead plundered resources. This made Lu Ming, Zixian, and the others certain that the creatures of the Forbidden Lands needed a large amount of resources to break the seal. They were plundering resources now in order to break more of their clansmen. In fact, now was a good time to attack the creatures of the Forbidden Lands because there weren't many of them. After they plundered more resources and unsealed more creatures of the Forbidden Lands, the situation would be even worse. However, whether it was the celestial race, the quasi-saint race, or the demons, they were all extremely afraid of the creatures of the Forbidden Lands and didn't dare to attack. The quasi-saint race and celestial race secretly dispatched even more people to spread throughout the ruins of the universe, increasing their efforts to search for the human monarch's heart. Similarly, Heaven Destroyer had also secretly sent out more people to search for the human king's heart. Now, they could only pin their hopes on the human king's body. With the body of a human king, there was no need to be afraid of these creatures of the Forbidden Grounds. Heaven Destroyer was now under a lot of pressure because the Primal Divine Mountain was relatively close to Heaven Destroyer's territory. If the forbidden creatures in the Primal Divine Mountain appeared, they would probably attack Heaven Destroyer's territory first. The demons were equally nervous. Their current territory was close to the Heaven Destroyer. The Heaven Destroyer and the demon had sent people to keep an eye on the Prime Divine Mountain, paying close attention to its every move. Not long after, what everyone was worried about happened. An army marched out of the Prime Celestial Mountain. There were nearly 3,000 of them, and all of them were the strange creatures that Lu Ming had seen sealed in the crystal. However, they didn't attack Heaven Destroyer's territory immediately. Instead, they sent out a team of about 100 people and directly headed toward Heaven Destroyer's base. This made the higher-ups of Heaven Destroyer very nervous. After the higher-ups of Heaven Destroyer heard the news, they immediately gathered all the experts of Heaven Destroyer. In a square of Heaven Destroyer's base, almost all the experts of Heaven Destroyer had gathered. Lu Ming was naturally among them. The other experts of the demon had also arrived. The demon was very clear that they were now on the same boat as Heaven Destroyer. If something happened to Heaven Destroyer, they wouldn't have a good ending either. In the square, everyone was silent. The atmosphere was very heavy as they looked at the sky and waited quietly, because they knew that the creatures of the Primal Divine Mountain's Forbidden Grounds were about to arrive. Sure enough, not long after, a stream of light flew over from the void in the distance. It was extremely dazzling and lit up the void. It was a sword of light. Standing on the sword of light were hundreds of creatures of the Primal Divine Mountain's Forbidden Grounds. Their appearance and height were no different from ordinary humans. The biggest difference was their hair. Their hair was made of beams of light. There were thousands of them, and they danced in the wind. It was very beautiful. However, Lu Ming knew that this kind of beautiful hair was a terrifying killing weapon. It could be seen that most of these creatures of the Primal Divine Mountain were middle-aged or elderly. There were also a few young ones, but there were only a few of them. Among them, a young man in a purple robe with a head full of purple beams of light was the most eye-catching. He stood in front of the many forbidden creatures like the stars surrounding the moon. He had an extraordinary aura. The sword of light stopped outside Heaven Destroyer's base, because there was a formation outside Heaven Destroyer's base. Are you trying to stop us with these incomplete formations? Among the forbidden creatures, the young man in a purple robe spoke. His thunderous voice echoed in the sky above Heaven Destroyer's base, and exploded in everyone's ears. How dare we? Open the formation, and let the distinguished guests of the Primal Divine Mountain in. Lion spoke, and his voice spread far and wide. Then, the formation trembled and opened up automatically. A huge gap appeared. The sword of light flashed, and the forbidden creatures of the Primal Divine Mountain flew in. After flying into the encampment of the Sky Exterminating Troop, the light swords disappeared automatically. Hundreds of forbidden creatures from the Yuanji Holy Mountain stood in the air above the crowd, looking down at the Sky Exterminating Troop, and the demons like kings looking down on their subjects. May I know why you have come to my place? Lion asked. It's very simple to come here. At this moment, a forbidden creature took out a chair for the young man in a purple robe to sit down. At the same time, an old man among the forbidden creatures stepped out and scanned the entire place. Ninth young Lord War Envoy. I have something to report. Suddenly, one of the forbidden creatures stepped forward and cupped his fists at the young man in a purple robe and the old man. This person was wearing black armor and looked like a guard. What is it? The young man in a purple robe asked. Ninth young master, several hundred years ago, someone entered our clan's territory and killed many of our people. Among those people, one of them is here. The guard behind the forbidden creature said. Oh. Hearing this, the young man in a purple robe was filled with murderous intent. Below, Lu Ming had a bad feeling. Sure enough, the guard pointed at Lu Ming and said, It's that kid. He was among those who entered our territory. I saw him kill many of our people. Asterisk swoosh. Asterisk the gazes of the other living beings of the forbidden grounds were like sharp swords, piercing Lu Ming. They were filled with cold murderous intent. Chapter 4799. The purple-robed young man's eyes were filled with killing intent as he looked coldly at Lu Ming. Very well. The purple-robed young man said coldly. Originally, there was only one thing for us to do today, but now there are two. The first thing we want you to do today is to surrender. You will submit to our tribe and work for us unconditionally. Also, you will give us all your resources, and you will live well. The second thing is the new additional condition. If you want to surrender, you will have to kill this person first and use his head as a condition of surrender. Many people were stunned when they heard the purple-robed young man's words. Then there was an uproar. This condition was too much. They wanted the Heaven Destroyer and the demon to surrender unconditionally, and work for the forbidden beings of the Prime Divine Mountain unconditionally. They also wanted to give up all their resources. What was the difference between that and being a slave? Furthermore, he could not surrender. He had to meet a condition. He had to kill Lu Ming first. Bullshit. Who do you think you are to ask us to surrender? Get lost. Wan Xin was the first to roar. That's right. A bunch of self-righteous fools. I'll tell you now that we reject all of your conditions. If you want to fight, let's fight. Don't think that we're afraid of you. Dandan and the others also roared. They were the closest to Lu Ming, so they naturally couldn't stand it. How dare you? You're courting death. The forbidden beings shouted. Their hair fluttered like sharp swords, as if they would launch a thunderous attack at any time. The purple-robed young man's eyes were also filled with coldness, but he didn't look at the others. Instead, he looked at Lion and a few others. That was because he could tell which people had more say. What do you say? The purple-robed young man asked indifferently. I reject your conditions. I reject them too. Lion Zixian and the others spoke one after another. How could they agree to such conditions? Becoming their slaves and working for them for the rest of their lives was worse than death. You'd better think it through. Don't overestimate your strength. Let me tell you, your strength compared to our tribe is like a fluorescent light compared to the bright moon. The difference between heaven and earth is like a mantis trying to stop a chariot. The purple-robed young man said coldly. You can state other conditions. For example, we can give up part of our territory to you. Lion said. This was the result of their discussion from the beginning. Even the quasi-saint race and celestial race were extremely fearful of the creatures of the Forbidden Lands, and retreated without fighting. These creatures of the Forbidden Lands were absolutely terrifying. If it wasn't necessary, they didn't want to fight with them. Giving up some territory was completely acceptable. The purple-robed young man was as if he was going to attack at any time. Ninth young master, not many of our people have awakened. If the other party directly gives up a portion of their territory, it will save us a lot of trouble. Why don't we agree to it first? It won't be too late to destroy them after more of our people have awakened. At this moment, the old man called the battle envoy, secretly transmitted his voice to the purple-robed young man. The purple-robed young man slowly calmed down. In fact, they knew that the Heaven Exterminating Troop and the demons would not agree to their request completely. Their main purpose here was to establish their authority. Fine. You want to negotiate with our tribe? Sure. Kill this man first and give us his head. Then I'll agree to your conditions. The purple-robed young man said coldly as he continued to look at Lu Ming. Impossible. Lion refused directly with a tough attitude. You're courting death. Do you understand? The war envoy shouted. You want to take my life? Come at me if you have the ability. Lu Ming, who had been watching from the sidelines, said with a sneer. He finally realized that the creatures of the Forbidden Grounds were extremely conceited, as if they were superior to everyone else. They had been hovering in the sky ever since they arrived at the Forbidden Grounds, not treating them as equals at all. It was impossible for them to get along peacefully. It was only a matter of time before they went to war. Therefore, there was no need for them to be humble in front of them. You're just an 8th-level divine master. You're overestimating yourself. Let me kill you. Next to the purple-robed young man, a tall and thin man shouted coldly. Then he rushed toward Lu Ming like a beam of light. The moment he rushed out, his hair danced and turned into thousands of light swords that pierced toward Lu Ming. The void was filled with sword-light hair that completely enveloped Lu Ming. Its power was shocking. This was a peak divine master expert. He was very terrifying. He was even stronger than the ordinary Lord of Heaven of the heavenly human tribe. However, such a person was nothing in Lu Ming's eyes. Swoosh. Lu Ming rushed out and kept changing his position, completely dodging the thousands of swords. The next moment, Lu Ming appeared in front of the other party. He punched out and accurately hit the other party's chest. The other party spat out a large mouthful of blood. A big hole appeared in his chest. His body was sent flying and crashed to the ground. His aura was weak. He was severely injured by Lu Ming in one move. The eyes of the creatures of the Forbidden Grounds all focused. Lu Ming was only an 8th-level divine master, but he had defeated a peak divine master expert in one move. This level of fighting prowess shocked them. So you have some skill. Very good. The purple-robed young man said coldly. The purple-robed young man said coldly as he stood up from his chair. His body was filled with an intense battle intent. I'll give you a chance now. Fight with me. If you can take 10 moves from me without being defeated, I can spare your life today. As the purple-robed young man spoke, his light hair danced. He was filled with confidence. At the same time, his cultivation was exposed. 9th-level divine master. The purple-robed young man was a 9th-level divine master. Since he was so confident after seeing Lu Ming's fighting prowess, it was clear that he was a peerless genius. 9th young master, you must be careful. This person is very strong. The guard hurriedly warned him. That large man had attacked too quickly. He did not even have time to warn 9th young master. Several hundred years ago, he had seen Lu Ming fight. His fighting prowess was astonishing. He had fought to a draw with the strongest existence, the Lord of Heaven. He saw that the purple-robed young man was about to attack, so he hurriedly warned him. You mean to say that I'm no match for him? I'm no match for an 8th-level divine master? The purple-robed young man's gaze was as sharp as a sword as he glanced at the guard, his voice icy. The guard paled and hurriedly said, This subordinate did not mean that. 9th young master's talent is unparalleled, and his fighting prowess is great. Aside from those young masters before, no one can match you. But this person's fighting prowess is also very strong. The guard wanted to tactfully mention Lu Ming's strength and warn the purple-robed young man to be careful. But the purple-robed young man waved his hand and stopped the guard. The present is not the desolate era of the past, the purple-robed young man indifferently said. Chapter 4800. In the previous era of the Eldritch continent, there were countless geniuses and monsters fighting for supremacy. Indeed, countless experts were born, and the purple-robed young man had seen countless terrifying geniuses. In such an era, he naturally did not dare to be careless or arrogant. But what era was it now? The Eldritch continent was in ruins and the universe was in ruins. What kind of heaven-defying monsters could be born in such an environment? Bang! Bang! The purple-robed young man stepped out. Every step he took caused the void to tremble and rumble. With every step he took, his aura grew stronger. Amidst the strong aura, there was an extremely cold aura that spread out, causing many people to feel chills down their spines. Lu Ming, be careful. This person is not simple. Lion said with a solemn expression. Lion could sense a serious threat from the purple-robed young man. I know. Lu Ming nodded. He grabbed the void and the war god spear appeared in his hand. At the same time, he stepped out and faced the purple-robed young man. Kill. The purple-robed young man roared. His head of purple hair turned into thousands of sharp swords that shot towards Lu Ming. The sharp swords pierced through the void and let out a terrifying whistling sound. The light beam hair of the creatures of the Forbidden Grounds was very unique. It could be of any size and length. Lu Ming executed his movement technique and moved among the sword lights, quickly approaching the purple-robed young man. Humph, you're too naive if you want to use such a method to deal with me. The purple-robed young man sneered. His light beam hair began to turn and lash towards Lu Ming like a long whip. Buzz. The god of combat spear vibrated, and the spear lashed out. However, after the god of combat spear bombarded the light beam hair, the other party's light beam hair merely bounced off. It was completely fine. It turned a corner and continued to attack Lu Ming. The thousands of light beam hair could be of any length and had a myriad of changes. Moreover, they were extremely powerful and difficult to deal with. Lu Ming continued to attack, but the light beam hair kept twisting, and it was difficult to exert force. For a moment, Lu Ming could not get close to the purple-robed young man, and seemed to be in a passive position. Bind him. The purple-robed youth's eyes flashed with cold killing intent. He controlled a portion of his hair to attack while the other portion continued to wrap around Lu Ming. He wanted to trap Lu Ming. If that's all you have, then let's end this. The purple-robed youth sneered. This is exactly what I wanted to say to you. Lu Ming's expression was very calm. Boom. In the next moment, a powerful aura erupted from Lu Ming's body. The battle formula increased his combat strength by 9 times. Previously, he had not activated the battle character art to increase his combat strength by 9 times. Now he had pushed his combat strength to its peak. Heaven-breaking style. After urging his battle strength to the peak, Lu Ming displayed the heaven-breaking style. His body turned into a spear and merged with the war god spear, turning into a dazzling spear light that pierced towards the purple-robed young man. No matter how many changes you have, I will break through all of them with force. Now that was what Lu Ming was planning to do. Lu Ming did not care that the light beam hair could change as he wished, and that it was very difficult to deal with. What he wanted to do was to break all of them. He wanted to break all of them with his powerful and sharp attack power. The purple-robed young man manipulated beams of light. His long hair waved and twisted together, blocking in front of him. He wanted to block Lu Ming's attack. Boom. The spear gleam that Lu Ming had transformed into collided with the other party's hair beam. This time, the hair that blocked the spear light was directly pierced through. The hair was pierced through by the spear light and rushed towards the purple-robed youth. The purple-robed youth's face changed and he could not help but retreat. However, Lu Ming's speed was too fast. He pierced through the void and rapidly approached the purple-robed youth's forehead. Lu Ming's war god spear was about to pierce through the purple-robed youth's forehead. However, at this moment, the purple-robed youth let out a low roar and a dazzling purple light burst out from his body. His body turned illusory as if he had turned into a ray of purple light. He kept twisting and turning into the shape of various weapons. Sometimes it turned into a war hammer, sometimes a whip, sometimes a spear. The transformation speed was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, he had turned into dozens of weapons. In the end, he turned into a purple sword and slashed at the tip of the war god spear. There was an earth-shattering explosion and a destructive force swept out in all directions. The surrounding people kept retreating to avoid the force produced by the battle between the two. After the violent explosion, a figure kept retreating. It was the purple-robed youth. He kept retreating for 100 miles before he could stabilize himself. On the other hand, Lu Ming's attack was blocked. The spear light dissipated and he turned back into his human form. The winner was obvious. In terms of this move, Lu Ming obviously had the upper hand. Therefore, the purple-robed youth's face was very ugly. He was a creature of the Forbidden Grounds and had a noble background. However, he was actually forced to retreat by Lu Ming. This was a serious blow to his pride, and made him want to kill Lu Ming. You're courting death. You forced me to use my killer move. Die. The purple-robed youth roared. His light beam hair danced in all directions like thousands of light snakes. At the same time, he slammed his palms into the sky and large dark clouds gathered in the sky. The dark clouds covered the sky and became denser. In the end, it started to spin rapidly and turned into a huge vortex. A terrifying pressure permeated the air, causing people to involuntarily feel a sense of terror in their hearts. A killer move. Many people were shocked and couldn't help but think of this sentence. It's coming. The Ninth Lord's destructive immortal light. Everything will be destroyed once the destructive immortal light is released. This person is dead. The creatures of the forbidden grounds of the primordial divine mountain smiled. They were very confident in the purple-robed youth's move. Lu Ming also felt a sense of pressure in his heart. Great defense technique, great shield technique, great convergence technique, great plate rock technique. Desolation form. Tens of thousands of light spots on Lu Ming's body lit up. Hundreds of defensive ancient secret techniques burst out and formed hundreds of layers of defense above his head. At the same time, he also used the desolation form. Just as Lu Ming used the desolation form and hundreds of ancient secret techniques, a purple light beam burst out from the vortex and blasted towards Lu Ming. It was too fast. It was so fast that he couldn't dodge it. It seemed to have destroyed space and covered a large area. Just like Dandan's illusory light beam. He couldn't dodge it and would be instantly enveloped. Destructive immortal light, die. The purple-robed youth roared. In the next moment, the purple light beam collided with Lu Ming's layers of defense. Boom. Boom. Lu Ming's layers of defense were destroyed one after another. In the end, the hundreds of ancient secret techniques were all destroyed and collided with the continent formed by the desolation form, resulting in a shocking explosion. The continent trembled, and within the purple pillar of light, it was reduced to ashes and dissipated. In the end, the remaining light beam hit Lu Ming and enveloped Lu Ming. Chapter 4801. Lu Ming was enveloped in the purple beam of light. This made the eyes of the people of the Prime Divine Mountain brighten up. He's been hit. If he's hit by the destructive immortal light, there's only one outcome for him: death. That's right. The destructive immortal light can destroy everything. In a battle of the same level, no one can withstand the attack of the destructive immortal light. Moreover, his cultivation is only at the 8th level of the Divine Master Realm. The people of the Prime Divine Mountain couldn't help but laugh. They believed that Lu Ming was doomed. However, the people of the Heaven Destroyer couldn't help but feel nervous. They were worried for Lu Ming. Boom. After being hit by the purple beam of light, Lu Ming's body smashed into the ground like a meteorite. The ground rumbled as a huge crater was created. Everyone present couldn't help but look at the huge crater. The people of the Heaven Destroyer and the evil demon were worried about Lu Ming's safety. The people of the Prime Divine Mountain wanted to see if Lu Ming had been destroyed. The purple-robed young man hovered in the air, panting heavily. Mist kept coming out of his body. It was obvious that the move just now had consumed a lot of his energy. He stared at the huge crater, his eyes shining with confidence. A mere 8th level Divine Master Realm can only die after being hit by my destructive immortal light. The purple-robed young man sneered. However, his smile immediately froze. This was because a figure had appeared in the huge crater. He was walking in the air, step by step. If it wasn't Lu Ming, who else could it be? How is this possible? The purple-robed young man's eyes widened. The other living beings of the Prime Divine Mountain had the same reaction. Their eyes widened in shock. The people of the Heaven Destroyer and the evil demon heaved a sigh of relief. They want to kill Lu Ming with just a beam of light? How naive. These people have no idea how many dangers Lu Ming has gone through. Dandan sneered. However, he immediately curled his lips and said, Lu Ming is in such a sorry state. How embarrassing. At this moment, Lu Ming was indeed in a sorry state. His body was in tatters, and there were at least dozens of wounds on his body. Each wound was shining with purple light, which was the remnant energy of the purple light beam. However, this remnant energy was quickly dispelled by the taboo power, and Lu Ming's injuries were quickly recovering. The forbidden physique's vitality was incomparably strong. and its recovery ability was also extremely shocking. Every second that passed, Lu Ming could recover a large portion of his strength. To be honest, the purple-robed youth's battle prowess was very strong. Although he was only a 9th-level divine master, his battle prowess had reached the level of the strongest Lord of Heaven. He was a prodigy on the same level as Yi Qiuxian. The immortal light of destruction was even more terrifying. Once it was unleashed, not even the Lord of Heaven would dare to face it head-on. However, the person he met was Lu Ming. Lu Ming had used a few hundred ancient secret arts and the ancient desolation style to nullify the power of the destructive immortal rays. Although he had been hit in the end, the destructive immortal rays were not that strong anymore. Although Lu Ming had been injured, he was basically fine with the vitality of the forbidden physique. Moreover, he had relied purely on his own strength to block it. He had not borrowed Qiuqiu's power. If any other existence on the level of the strongest Lord of Heaven had been hit, even if they had not died, they would have been seriously injured. They definitely would not have been in the state that Lu Ming was in. However, the people of the Prime Divine Mountain did not know that Lu Ming's vitality was so strong. That was why they were so shocked when they saw Lu Ming being attacked by the destructive immortal rays. Is this your strongest attack? If you don't have any stronger moves, then you will be defeated. Lu Ming said coldly. The aura on his body erupted once again. Rays of spear light shot out from Lu Ming's body, piercing holes in the surrounding void. Whoosh! Lu Ming raised his fighting strength to the peak and stabbed out with his spear. The spear light pierced the sky and pierced through the void, stabbing toward the purple-robed youth. The purple-robed youth could only control his light beam hair to block the attack. At the same time, his body turned into a battle sword of purple light, slashing out rays of sword light. He no longer had the strength to use the destructive immortal rays a second time. Without the destructive immortal rays, the purple-robed youth was clearly no match for Lu Ming. Moreover, he had consumed a lot of energy to use the destructive immortal rays. Soon, he was completely at a disadvantage. He was no match for Lu Ming, and was forced to retreat. Bam! After dozens of moves, the purple-robed youth's body was struck by the war god's spear. His body was sent flying. His body was split in two, but it quickly reconnected. Although he did not die, he was seriously injured. His aura was much weaker, and blood was flowing out of his mouth. Damn it! He growled. His eyes were fixed on Lu Ming, revealing monstrous killing intent. He had never imagined that he would lose to an 8th-level divine master. Few people of the same level were a match for him. He had never thought that he would lose to someone of a lower cultivation level. This was not the Eldritch continent of the past. If this was the Eldritch continent of the past, it would not have been a big deal. But now they were in ruins. He found it hard to accept. His confidence had been severely damaged. Swish! At this moment, Lu Ming turned into a ray of spear light and continued to attack the purple-robed youth. The purple-robed youth's heart skipped a beat. He retreated while shouting, "Combat Envoy Wang Qian, kill this brat for me! Kill! 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 Kill!" 4 consecutive roars filled with killing intent were heard. 4 figures stepped into the air and charged toward Lu Ming. One of them was the old man who had been talking earlier. The 4 of them unleashed a terrifying killing intent. One of them wiped out his light beam hair and enveloped Lu Ming like an inescapable net. One of them turned into a ray of light and transformed into a weapon that charged toward Lu Ming. Lu Ming's pupils contracted involuntarily. The combat strength of the 4 of them was extremely terrifying. Each of them was at the level of the strongest Lord of Heaven. Lu Ming alone was not a match for the 4 of them. Therefore, Lu Ming did not hesitate to borrow Qiuqiu's power. Qiuqiu turned into an armor that covered Lu Ming's body. At the same time, a ray of light shot out and enveloped one of the experts of the Prime Divine Mountain. The other party's movements stiffened. At the same time, Guemo flew out from Lu Ming's glabella with the purple-gold battle axe in his hand. He swept out continuously and enveloped 2 experts of the Prime Divine Mountain. Boom! Boom! Lu Ming waved his battle god spear and blocked the attack of the 4th expert. The 4 experts were all blocked by Lu Ming. The experts of the Prime Divine Mountain were shocked. They did not expect Lu Ming to have so many experts following him. At the same time, They were attracted by Qiuqiu's illusory light beam. What kind of light is that? It can make people fall into an illusion. It looks like the great dream immortal light. It does look like it. He has a wisp of the great dream immortal light on him. The people of the prime divine mountain were discussing. Some of them stared at Lu Ming with a burning gaze. The forbidden living beings of the prime divine mountain had a strong desire for all kinds of unique lights. Chapter 4802. This guy used the metallic life form to block my attack. How shameless. Let's attack him together. The purple-robed young man yelled. He seemed to have found an excuse for his failure after discovering Qiuqiu. He assumed that Lu Ming must have used Qiuqiu to block his destructive immortal ray. He did not believe that Lu Ming could block his destructive immortal ray with his own strength. Lu Ming was too lazy to explain it to him. Bang! The expert shrouded in the illusionary light beam broke free from the illusionary light beam and attacked Lu Ming together with the old man from the primary divine mountain. As for the other two experts from the primary divine mountain, they were busy dealing with the bone demon. Lu Ming was fearless facing the two experts. He went straight for them. With Qiuqiu's help, he would not feel any pressure fighting the two strongest Lord of Heaven on his own. Both sides clashed, unleashing an intense battle. Meanwhile, the purple-robed young man took the opportunity to retreat to the side. He took out a jade bottle and inhaled. A purple ray flew out of the jade bottle and was sucked into the purple-robed young man's mouth. After inhaling the purple ray, the purple-robed young man's body was covered in a strong purple glow. His injuries began to recover at a shocking pace. The energy he had expended previously was also recovering rapidly. When Lu Ming and the two experts from the primary divine mountain had exchanged over 10 moves, the purple-robed young man had at least recovered 90% of his strength. His eyes were fixed on Lu Ming with strong murderous intent. Whoosh! Suddenly, the purple-robed young man made his move. He turned into a purple ray and charged at Lu Ming. Despicable! Trying to bully me with numbers? I'll keep you company. Xian Yanqing stepped forward and unleashed a few wisps of demonic qi, which turned into a few boundless demon souls that charged at the purple-robed young man and blocked his path. Such a beautiful woman. Beauty, if you want to stop me, why don't you submit to me? As my concubine, you can get whatever you want. The purple-robed young man glanced at Xian Yanqing passionately. You think you're worthy? Xian Yanqing sneered as the immeasurable devil steel's phantom image appeared. With a wave of his hand, a large number of immeasurable devil souls appeared and pounced on the purple-robed young man. Humph, you don't know what's good for you. The purple-robed young man snorted coldly and didn't say anything else. He launched an attack on Xian Yanqing, wanting to suppress Xian Yanqing first. However, after exchanging blows, the purple-robed young man was shocked beyond words. Xian Yanqing's strength was actually not below his. He launched a series of attacks, but he couldn't do anything to Xian Yanqing. Instead, the immeasurable demonic soul entered his body, which made him more and more irritable. He was even more displeased, extremely displeased. In the great desolate continent of the previous epoch, there were indeed many outstanding talents whose talents and combat prowess surpassed his. However, after being sealed for so many years, he originally thought that apart from his brothers and the creatures from the other forbidden lands, there shouldn't be any other living beings in the ruins who were at the same level as him. However, the moment he was born, reality had taught him a lesson. First, it was Lu Ming. Although his cultivation was one level lower than his, he was able to suppress him. Then it was Xian Yanqing. Although they were at the same level, both were 9th level divine masters. Xian Yanqing's combat prowess wasn't any weaker than his. This made him extremely displeased. Royal Envoy Guangqian attack. The purple-robed young man roared. 9th young master is finally letting me attack? I've been waiting impatiently. A lazy voice rang out as a young man walked out from the group of prime divine mountain disciples. This young man looked to be in his 20s. Of course, age couldn't be measured by appearance. This person was dressed in long silver robes, and his long silver hair fluttered in the wind. He was extraordinarily handsome. The other beings of the prime divine mountain's forbidden grounds looked at the person in front of them with reverence. Whoosh! A beam of light shot out from this person's hair like a sharp sword. extending as it pierced toward Lu Ming. Lu Ming couldn't help but feel his heart skip a beat. His muscles tensed as he felt an immense pressure. Although it was only a beam of light that flew toward him, he still felt an intense sense of danger from it. Wielding the war god's spear, he thrust it forward and pierced the beam of light. With a boom, the war god's spear and the beam of light collided. At the moment of impact, Lu Ming felt an extremely sharp energy rush toward him along the war god's spear. Lu Ming couldn't help but retreat. However, he was still unable to disperse the incomparably sharp energy. There were still remnants of the energy that struck his body. They were like incomparably sharp swords that were slicing his body. Fortunately, Qiu transformed into armor that covered his entire body and blocked this sharp energy. What terrifying energy! This person's strength is definitely above that of the strongest Lord of Heaven. Lu Ming's expression turned grave. Although this person's cultivation was only at the peak of the Divine Master realm, his combat strength was unfathomable. The 4 people who had the strongest fighting strength of the Lord of Heaven were called war envoys. This person was called Guangqian War Envoy by the purple-robed youth. His status among the creatures of the Forbidden Lands was completely different. In this era, an 8th-tier Divine Master with such combat strength is truly beyond my expectations. All of you back off. Leave these people to me. Guangqian War Envoy's indifferent voice sounded. The 4 war envoys from before immediately retreated. Lu Ming, be careful. This person's strength is unfathomable. I'm afraid he's not weaker than the Yi Immortal from before. Guemo appeared beside Lu Ming and whispered. From his voice, one could tell that Guemo was also very serious. Indeed, this should be a peak expert among the creatures of the Forbidden Lands. Lu Ming said. At this moment, Xian Yanqing also came to Lu Ming's side and stood side by side with Lu Ming. Guangqian War Envoy walked toward Lu Ming step by step. Lu Ming, let me help you. Lion shouted and also came to Lu Ming's side. At the same time, 2 of the most powerful demon masters among the demons also stood with Lu Ming. Do you think you can stop me just because you have more people? No one can stop me if I want to kill someone. Guangqian War Envoy said indifferently, full of confidence. Boom. The next moment, a terrifying aura exploded from his body. Thousands of light beams danced in the air like a demon god. Lu Ming and the others couldn't help but feel nervous. They felt an inexplicable sense of danger. Leave him to me. At this moment, a voice came from the other side of the Heaven Destroyer's base. As the voice finished, a figure appeared in front of Lu Ming and the others. Gu Changfeng. Lion and the others were overjoyed. Gu Changfeng had appeared. With Gu Changfeng's help, they shouldn't be afraid of the enemy. When Guangqian War Envoy looked at Gu Changfeng, the indifference on his face disappeared and was replaced by curiosity and seriousness. Interesting. Guangqian Emissary chuckled. Suddenly he moved. His body turned into a beam of light and charged towards Gu Changfeng. He was so fast that no one could react in time. However, Gu Changfeng was able to react in time and block the attack. The 2 exchanged blows. Chapter 4803. Gu Changfeng and Guangqian Emissary exchanged a blow and both of them retreated at the same time. But after retreating for a while, they charged at each other at the same time. The 2 powerhouses engaged in an intense battle. They fought high up in the sky, killing each other crazily. In the blink of an eye, they had exchanged more than 100 blows, but there was still no winner. There's someone as powerful as Guangqian Emissary here. The creatures in the forbidden grounds of the primordial divine mountain were all shocked as they stared at the sky. Obviously, they were all shocked. They had never thought that there would be someone as powerful as Guangqian Emissary in the Heaven Destroyer. They knew how powerful Guangqian Emissary was. He was almost invincible in the Divine Lord realm. It was extremely rare for someone to be more powerful than Guangqian Emissary in the Divine Lord realm. Guangqian Emissary was not a name, but a title. Only when one's power reached a terrifying level in the Divine Lord realm could he be called Guangqian Emissary. Similarly, War Emissary was also a title. Only when one's power reached the level of the Lord of Heaven could he be called War Emissary. The 4 powerhouses who had besieged Lu Ming earlier were all combat envoys below the king. And Guangqian Emissary was much more powerful than war emissaries. There were very few creatures in the forbidden grounds of the primordial divine mountain who could be called Guangqian emissary. They had never thought that there would be someone like that in the Heaven Destroyer. The young man in the purple robe looked very gloomy as he scanned Lu Ming with murderous intent. But he did not order them to continue the attack. Because Lu Ming had Bone Demon, Xian Yinqing Lion and the others with him. They were all more powerful than him. Even if they attacked, they would not be able to gain an advantage. Now they could only place their hopes on Guangqian emissary. Soon, Gu Changfeng and Guangqian emissary had exchanged more than 100 blows, but there was still no winner. The young man in the purple robe looked even worse. He knew that Gu Changfeng and Guangqian emissary were on par with each other. It would be difficult to determine the winner. Are you really not going to agree to my request? The young man in the purple robe looked at Lion and the others and asked again. Don't waste your breath. We won't agree to any of your conditions. Lion strongly refused. You overestimate yourselves. Do you think you can stop my clan with your strength? Let me tell you. That's like a mantis trying to stop a chariot, trying to throw an egg at a rock. You're digging your own grave. The purple-robed young man shouted. I, the Heaven Destroyer, am not afraid of death. If you want to fight, then let's fight to the end. Lion replied coldly. You. The purple-robed youth was suppressing his anger. He wanted to explode, but he couldn't. It was really uncomfortable. He really didn't expect a mere Heaven Destroyer to be so unappreciative. If it weren't for the fact that most of their people were still sealed, they would have led the army to destroy the Heaven Destroyer long ago. Boom. There was a terrifying explosion in the sky. Gu Changfeng and Guangqian emissary both retreated. Their bodies were filled with dazzling light, and their auras kept surging. However, they were not as strong as before. Evidently, they had used up a lot of energy from the battle. However, neither of them could do anything to the other. King Guangqian, there's no need to fight anymore. Let's go. The purple-robed young man shouted, and turned around to leave. He was quite decisive. The others followed the purple-robed young man and left. After walking for a while, the purple-robed young man's voice came from afar. Sooner or later, you will regret today's decision. As soon as he finished speaking, the spirit of the forbidden area had disappeared without a trace. Although they had defeated the spirit of the forbidden area of the Yuanji Holy Mountain, Lu Ming, Xian Yanqing, Lion, Zixian, and the others looked very serious. Although there were only a few hundred of the spirit of the forbidden area, the strength that they had displayed was already very terrifying. One of them was as strong as Gu Changfeng and 5 of them were as strong as the Lord of Heaven. This kind of strength was already a top force in the current primitive universe. However, this was obviously only a small part of the spirit of the forbidden area. It was difficult to estimate the full strength of the spirit of the forbidden area, especially the spirit of the Guangqian emissary. If there were more of them, they would be undefeatable. This was also the reason why they didn't attack and let the spirit of the forbidden area leave. They didn't want to offend the spirit of the forbidden area completely. If they really left the spirit of the forbidden area behind, they would really offend the spirit of the forbidden area, and there would be no room for reconciliation. After discussing for a while, they began to make arrangements to guard against the spirit of the forbidden area of the Yuanji Holy Mountain. Indeed, not long after, a large group of spirit of the forbidden area walked out of the Yuanji Holy Mountain. There were about 3,000 of them. After these spirit of the forbidden area walked out of the Yuanji Holy Mountain, they began to attack the territory occupied by the Heaven Destroyer and the demons. The Heaven Destroyer and the demons obviously didn't plan to fight the spirit of the forbidden area head-on. They quickly retreated and gave up half of their territory to defend the remaining territory. As for the spirit of the forbidden area of the Yuanji Holy Mountain, because there were too few of them, they didn't continue to attack after occupying a large territory. Instead, they focused on mining the resources in these territories. For example, some of the divine herbs in the continental fragments, all kinds of precious metals, natural treasures with special functions, and the chaos crystals. However, a few thousand people was equivalent to the vast universe ruins. They were too small, so it would take a lot of time to mine them all. Therefore, the universe fell into a state of peace again. The Heaven Destroyer and the demons, the quasi-saint race, and the celestial race focused on defense. They shrunk their territory and concentrated their strength on defense. As for the spirit of the Dark Pit Demon Mountain, the Yuanji Holy Mountain, and the Tsangguan Sea, they focused on mining resources. It wasn't hard to guess that the spirit of the three forbidden areas were so anxious to mine resources, because they wanted to use these resources to awaken more spirit of the forbidden areas. However, although the three parties could guess the goal of the spirit of the forbidden areas, they didn't have the courage to take the initiative to attack. The strength of the spirit of the forbidden areas was unfathomable. If they took the initiative to attack, they might suffer a terrifying counterattack and bring about their own destruction. What they could do was to continuously increase their strength and search for more treasures. The three parties focused on the human monarch's heart, especially the Heaven Destroyer, who had already controlled the body of the human monarch. If he could obtain the human monarch's heart, he would be able to control the body of the human monarch. In that case, he wouldn't have to fear the spirit of the forbidden areas. Just like that, another few decades passed in the blink of an eye. In these few decades, in addition to the hundreds of years before, Lu Ming had been comprehending the 3000th ancient secret technique. After unremitting efforts, he finally made some progress. This made Lu Ming overjoyed. With some progress, things would be easier. It was equivalent to having a direction. It was only a matter of time before he comprehended it. Once he comprehended it, Lu Ming felt that the taboo power would undergo a major change. His battle strength would definitely increase by a level. If he went all out now, his battle strength would be equivalent to the strongest Lord of Heaven. If he comprehended the 3000th ancient secret technique, even if he encountered the Guangqianwang envoy, he might still have the power to fight. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.